The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. Good morning and welcome. We're going to be with you for the next 3 hours. I know, hard to believe, right? 3 hours, but it goes by like that. Talking about topics having to do with autism and how we can be the most effective, efficient members of a team working with a child with autism. Whether you're a parent, a teacher, or practitioner, we know that that's something that is very much of interest to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here, right? And it's very much of interest to me because I am an autism mom. My son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. He is now 9, and I'm happy to report that he is doing wonderfully. And the reason why he's doing wonderfully is because, it's a whole host of things, but largely because we were able to start ABA at a really good time. I still, we all have that. I kick myself about the fact that we didn't start it earlier, but it was about a week and a half, 2 weeks after his 3rd birthday. We started intensive ABA with the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And I know for many of you listening, you're thinking 3, my child's 5 or my child's 8 or my child's 22, but it's important to start wherever we are with the information that we have. And I know we talk about ABA a lot here because it's such a huge, huge area and there's so much to learn. And we know that it's the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It's certainly by no means the only thing that we talk about here, right? But I think that, this, as the science grows and grows and grows, and there's a tremendous amount of science, what we see is that not only is ABA effective for our kids, it's effective for all of our kids. I think so often, I'm talking to another parent and everybody talks about, what are you doing and what's worked and what's been effective. And, and there are some things that a parent will say, hey, this was really effective for my child. And then other people go, oh, this was of no use to my child. Our kids are all so different, and it makes it difficult for our community to cohese on different things. But the one constant that I see, and that I see in science, it's totally replicated in science. Even the Surgeon General has said that ABA is the gold standard of treatment because it is effective in creating progress for all of our kids, no matter what their age is, no matter what their skill level is, no matter what their skill deficit is. How profoundly they're affected, it's still going to help them to achieve progress. Are they all going to end up in the same place? No. But progress is progress is progress. And wherever you are, if you think about, wow, if we could be in a different place a month from now than we are now and have progress, how much easier would your life be? And how much more positive would you feel as an influence in that child's life? And I think we all can attest to the answer that, if we can make progress, it's one of those things. Is it ever enough, right? But at the same time, making progress is something I think that quiets a lot of the anxiety. And it's substantive. So really, really important. And that's one of the reasons why we talk about ABA a lot. And we talk about a lot of things around ABA because I know, for one, how difficult it is to get started in some places. Some places it's not as difficult anymore because as insurance reform is taking hold, there are people who are finding, wow, this isn't as difficult as it once was. There's still paperwork and waiting and, but for a lot of people, a lot of you out there, and I know this was something that you guys guys were saying last week, it's still quite the hurdle. There's the financial issue to it. There's the distance issue if you're not near an ABA provider. I want to be somebody who's here and helping you to overcome whatever the obstacle is so that you can start an ABA program with your child that is appropriate for your child. We know for early intervention that we want to be between 25 and 40 hours a week. And, you know, I say that, and I remember when I first heard that, I remember my chest just went, right? Because all I could think was, how are we going to make that work? And there's so many different levels which you ask yourself, how are we going to make that work financially? How are we going to make that work just in terms of our living space? How are we going to make that work in terms of our lives? And I'm here to tell you, it's possible and it's worth it. And it's possible for all of you. And I know you might be thinking, how could that possibly be? But enough has changed that I honestly can say it is possible for all of you. With the advent of CARDI learning and skills, I know that if nothing else, you can educate yourself in a fairly easy, quick, economical way so that you can be implementing these things with your child. And we're here to support you in whatever way you're going to start ABA. But we're here to support you in general. So I hope that's clear. While we're supporting you, I know that there is information that you need. I spent a lot of time over the weekend kind of catching up on some of the emails that you guys have sent. So hopefully if you got a message from me over the weekend, it'll help you to get to the things that you need to get to. And we're looking for an intern to help me to be able to answer some of the questions, because it's just, it's wonderful. You guys are writing in and we appreciate that. And I want to tell the rest of you how you can write in. If you're watching us right now on autism-live.com, you'll see on your screen that it says either live or rebroadcast. If it says live, then you know that you are in fact watching us right now. We're live. And that means that your question box there is active. All you have to do is type in there. By the way, you don't have to log on. You don't have to give us your address or your credit card number or any of that stuff. You just type away and hit enter, and it shows up magically right here before me on the screen, and we can have a conversation. And by the way, that holds true whenever we have a guest or an expert on the show. You can be having a conversation with them as well. Now, if it says rebroadcast, then you're watching a show that we taped earlier sometime in the recent past, but you can still participate in lots of different ways. And one of them, and Emily's starting to show them for you here, is through email. This is our email address, and you can write us there. What we'll do is address your question on the next available live show, and we will also send you back a typewritten response. So, and that does take a day or two, I'm seeing, but we're trying to speed that process up for you, but we will get back to you. So please send us your questions via email. And by the way, you can send it right while you're watching. It doesn't matter what time of day or night it is where you are, just send off the email to us. There are other ways to get a hold of us too, because we know that you guys have different things that you find reinforcing. I am not as much of an email person as a talker. I prefer to talk on the phone when at all possible. Although I'm seeing that there are great benefits to being able to tweet and all those other things. But if you are like me and you prefer to talk, you can call us. You can even ask to be patched in directly into the studio so that we can be talking live on the air, if that's what you would like to do. If you don't want to do that because you're shy, that's okay. There are people standing by waiting to take your phone call. And if we are not here, if it's not during business hours, then you can leave a message and we will get back to you as soon as we are back into the studio. By the way, you can also be Skyping with us. We're looking forward to Skyping a little bit later on with a wonderful woman, Deborah Husseini from The Art of Autism. She's going to be Skyping into the show. And all this week, we're going to be Skyping with a lot of different guests that I'm really excited to bring to you. We'll talk more about that later on. We can Skype anywhere in the world. So that's a very exciting thing. And we hope that you'll participate. If you'd like to be on the show, you can Skype in right now. And if you have camera on your computer, we can put your picture right up here and we can be having a conversation in real time. So that's a wonderful thing. But by the way, there are other ways for you to get in touch with us. We have a Facebook page. While you're there, we appreciate your likes. You can answer the question of the day there. You can pose suggestions. You can leave us a message. Any way that you would like. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us on Facebook. Our Facebook has changed a couple of times. So please check out the new site. I think it's got a lot of really good information on it. I mentioned that you can be watching us on autism-live.com, but that's not the only place that you can watch us. In fact, you can watch us in several places, including blip.tv. We have our own sort of channel there that you can watch all of our old episodes in their entirety. You can search a topic, you can pause, you can rewind. This came about because you guys asked for it and said, hey, I missed Tuesday's show. How do I go back and watch that after the fact? Do I have to watch in rotation and hope that I catch it at the right time? No, you don't have to do that anymore. And thank you for bringing that issue up to us. We are listening. So you can pause, rewind, fast forward, whatever you want. Search a specific day. If you missed Holly Robinson Pete on the show last Wednesday, you can absolutely go to blip.tv. And what a wonderful powerhouse she is. I thoroughly enjoyed her. So take a look at that, as well as a whole bunch of other interviews that we did last week that were really exciting. But it doesn't have to even be last week. It could be something that happened 2 months ago. Take the opportunity to look around on our blip.tv. By the way, we also have a channel on YouTube, and you can be searching the same kinds of things on YouTube. There are also some wonderful, very small, if you just want to see the interview with Holly Robinson Pete, or you just want to see the interview we did with Dr. Adele Nadowski last week, you can find those shorter elements on YouTube and really hone in on the subjects that you want to hone in on there. You can also review us and pose questions or comments on the YouTube channel as well. And you can also do that on iTunes. We are a free download. In all these places that I'm mentioning, we are free. So download us for free on iTunes. We love reviews on iTunes. Whether you like us, whether you hate us, give us a review. We really enjoy it. And you can also be watching us on Ustream. So all of these ways, again, for free, that you can be watching the show. We hope you participate in whatever way suits you. And by the way, if there's a way that you don't see that you'd like to be watching us, I hope you'll write in and tell us, or call in and tell us, or Skype in and tell us, because if we're not there, it's because we don't know about it, probably. So educate us. We really appreciate, by the way, what I don't know is endless and boundless, right? I am here to kind of be a conduit and to help provide information for the things that you ask, because you ask a question and I go run it down. It's not that I have this storage bank, and because I am not an expert in autism. I like to remind you guys that on a regular basis. I am not an expert in ABA. I am not a psychologist. I am a former teacher, and I guess there's no such thing as being a former teacher. Once a teacher, always a teacher, right? And I am a mom. And so I get it on a lot of levels. I can't understand everything that you're going through because your circumstances are different, but I have huge empathy for what you are trying to do. I get that. I know how emotional this is. Oof. I really do. And I have so much respect for what you're trying to do. And I want to help you. I want to try to save you 5 minutes, $5, whatever it is. I mean, of course, I want to save you more money than that, and I want to save you more time than that. Because I know people did that for me. So paying it forward every day, trying to be useful to you. Tell me how I can do that sincerely, and I'll figure it out, right? And sometimes, it's hard because I'll tell you, one of the hardest things about this is that there are some of you who write in and say, I don't know how to solve this issue. And for some of you, it's just an easy answer now. And I can say to you, you've got insurance reform. Here's the phone call you need to make. Here's the place, that you can get some more answers, but you're going to be able to get your child ABA and it's going to be paid for. It's going to take a while to work it out, but it's going to be okay. And then there are others of you who write me and I see that you don't have insurance reform, and not that there's nothing you can do, but it's going to be harder. And I have to tell you that I can't wait. I cannot wait until we can level this playing field, and that somebody in India can call and I know that they've got access to ABA, and somebody in Kansas can call and I know that they've got access to ABA, the same as it is for everyone. It isn't that way right now, and I know It just sucks the breath right out of me. But we have to deal with things the way they are right now and be making progress. And I want to help you to be able to help your child wherever you are in the world. Because all of our kids are important, right? I like to say here, it's Monday, I'm already crying, but we don't give up on anybody. We don't give up on you. You don't give up on your kid. None of us gives up on your child ever. Because that's just not an option, right? So we do everything that we can right now, and we push for progress in the future. It's better than it was, but it's not equal. It's not even, not by a long shot. All right, knowing that, what can we do? That's what I'm all about. All right, and that makes a huge difference, a huge, huge difference if we get in that mindset. So to that end, we like to start every morning with something that I fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. And this is, you want to talk about getting your mindset on, right? This is, we strap on that hat and say, all right, I'm in, I'm doing this. I watched Olympics while I was typing to you guys over the weekend. And just to see the drive and the passion and the ability to persevere and to not give up, right? And it's so evident in all these athletes' faces. Well, I'm not an athlete. I am whatever the exact polar opposite of an athlete is, that's what I am. But I appreciate that stick-to-itiveness because I think we all have that in some areas of our life. I was saying the other day that I don't believe that I came upon this all on my own, but other parents said to me, you have to get like a horn on your head, that this is you are going to help your child no matter what it takes, and that horn is just always there, and you're always focused on it, and laser focus, that there is help for your child, and you're going to get it. And because they said to me, this is what you're going to do and this is how you're going to do it, we were able to achieve that to some extent. There are things I would do over again differently, right? And be a little bit more, if anything, adversarial and more, I'm going to get more for my child. Because now that I see what it did for him, right? I refer to it as the autism miracle in my living room, ABA. So, but in any case, I've said before, man, if I could get that driven about some other things in my life, it'd be very exciting. I'm working on that. I'm working on spreading it around. But we all need to really focus on being able to help our children in all the ways that we can, right? We can't focus on the things that we can't surmount, but there are some things that we can do. And one of the things, I know it's not the thing we want to do, but one of the things that we can do is learn the jargon, so that we understand what people are talking about when they're talking about treating our children, that we understand the terms that they use when they're referring to what's going on with our child. We can do that. We don't want to be overwhelmed by it, so we do it a little bit at a time, just like how we teach our children, small little morsels that hopefully we find reinforcing, rewarding, and then over time, what happens is that you build a skill and you start to understand the jargon terms. I don't think we're ever done, right? We had Dr. Adele Nadowski in the other day, and she said a bunch more jargon words that we have not been doing on a regular basis, and believe me, I'm putting them into the rotation because I was like, I'm a little overwhelmed. But that's okay because we can learn them. I was able to learn some of these, and I know that you can too if we do it in small amounts. So we take one word, one phrase, one anagram a day. We give you an actual definition, and then we give you a working definition. And I personally like to make fun of the actual definitions because usually they're full of more jargon. Okay, so today's, it's not even a word, it's not an anagram. Well, anyway, the term for today is SD, and you see it's a big S and it's a capital D but a small d. We don't need to get into why that is, but what it stands for is discriminative stimulus. discriminative stimulus, but you're going to hear it referred to as the SD. And what is a discriminative stimulus? It is a circumstance or action that precedes reinforcement. Okay, that's not the worst definition, but if you have no idea what they're talking about out of context, you go, huh? So let's look at our actual working definition, which is what you say or do to get the child to do the desired response. So if I want the child to come and stand over by me, what am I going to say or do to get them to do that? There's lots of different things I could say. I could say, come here. I could gesture, right? I could point to the spot, which is another gesture. I could hold up a card that says, come here, right? There's all different kinds of things. I could just look at them and then move my eyes over there. But any of those things are the SD. And you'll see that when you start to work with your child, and especially if you're going to do ABA, there's one element of ABA that's called DTT, and we're going to be talking more about it later on in the show. It stands for discrete trial teaching, which is when we're going to set up a very set circumstance to teach something. When you stop and think about, for instance, I'm working on riding a bike right now with my son. It's something that we've tried a couple of different times, but we discovered that he had a motor eye issue and was making it hard for him. He can ride with training wheels, right? But without the training wheels, it just continues to be a difficult thing. And we're making progress. But you know, the first time that I went out to teach him how to ride a bike and I wasn't using my ABA knowledge, I went out and had him get on the bike, and I thought it was just going to be this easy peasy thing, you know, because I've seen so many videos of it, and I remember my father doing this with me. You know, you run along the street holding onto the seat, and then when you feel like they're moving at a good clip, you just let go and they figure it out, and then they crash, but they figure it out, and it's reinforcing enough for them that they want to do it again, right? Boom, it just happens. Except with our kids, doesn't just happen. It just doesn't. And so then you start thinking, well, what's going wrong here, right? Well, if you take all the different skills that it takes to be able to ride a bicycle without training wheels, then you start to understand how overwhelming it can be for a child with autism. You know, there's being able to steer, right? There's being able to keep your focus up and keep your legs moving without having to look at your legs. Being able to feel the pedals on your feet and being able to push the pedals, that you have to be able to change legs. One leg you're having come up while the other one you're pushing, right? It requires a certain amount of coordination. While you're doing this and looking ahead, you have to know how to stop. You have to know how to, when the bike leans one way, to turn it the other way. You have to know how to put your foot out to prevent yourself from falling. Endless, right? Plus which there's all the sensory things of moving fast and things going past you and looking over here and looking over here, knowing when a car comes or if a dog. There's a lot of things to think about that can be very overwhelming. And in fact, that's where my son is, just very overwhelming to him. So what do we do then? We take it apart into little tiny, tiny increments, right? And when we try to do too much at one time, right? The child or somebody gets overwhelmed, very likely everyone. So, what we see, and by the way, I'm using skills, and so I'm working on these riding a bike in the progression of what skills we want to chain together. So just first of all, sitting on the bike and steering and understanding how things steer, keeping the eye focus up, pedaling with the feet. But one of the first things that we're working on and that we've mastered is being able to stop. So I'm holding the bike up and we pedal along and I say, stop. Now the first set of things to do was for him to be able to push the pedals back and stop the bike. Okay, so how much easier is it if I say, you're not going to ride the bike today. All we're going to do today is stop. So what's my SD? That I say to him, stop. And this is where we want to be 100% clear. Because if we're going to try to take it down into this laser focused little moment, we're only teaching this moment, we got to be 100% clear. What do I say? What does the child do? What's the reinforcement that I give? So I'm pedaling along with him and I'm holding my hand on the handlebar and my hand on the seat, and he's pedaling and I'm telling him what a great job you're doing. And we've talked about this beforehand, that I say to him, all we're working on today is that when I say stop, you push back with whichever foot is higher, right? And you stop the bike. And then I go, yay, good job. That's all you have to do today. So and eventually I am going to change it up. But in the beginning when I'm teaching it, I got to be 100% clear. I know my SD right now is stop. The behavior that I want is that he pushes back, and then I praise him because that's what works for him. For some kids, it would have to be something else, right? If they don't find praise reinforcing enough, but we can make praise reinforcing. Great. So the SD is always going to be that really concise, specific thing that we say or do that gets the child to do the behavior so that we can deliver the reinforcement. If it sounds like duh to you, stop and consider that there are going to be some more complex lessons in life that we're going to teach that we're going to need to be 100% specific about what the SD is. What you'll see with some lessons is that they'll say that the SD, you get choices that, and we do want to be switching up the SD from time to time. So I don't only ever want to say stop when I want him to stop. I might want to every once in a while say break. And I'm going to let him know if I say break or if somebody screams and says look out, right, that he knows to stop. Because in the moment of stress, I may not, or somebody down the street, the neighbor is about to open a car door and somebody standing there sees that my son is about to hit the car door, they may not say stop because they don't know what the SD is, right? So eventually I'm going to vary that SD up a lot and have it be different things. But in the beginning, because I want to teach in that moment and start for him to understand, I say stop, you push back, you get reinforced for it. Then I work on to other things, right? But that's what the SD is. It's what you say or do to get the child to do the target behavior that you want. You say, oh, my computer's doing all kinds of interesting things. You say, come here, and the child comes here, you reinforce them, right? You say, sit down, that's an SD. The child sits down, and you praise them for that, or give some other kind of reinforcement. So that discriminative stimulus, don't worry about why it's discriminative stimulus and why it's a big S and why it's, like that isn't important at this stage of the game. But the SD is the thing you say or do. And sometimes you'll see in a lesson that it's SD1 or SD2 or SD3, right? Because we are going to change it and we're going to build on it. But it's what you say or do to get the child to do the desired response. Really important to know what an SD is. You're going to hear people use this term. Okay, we always have a question of the day. The question of the day is meant to get you thinking and participating with all of us. Really love that most of you are answering these questions on Facebook now, on our Facebook page. It's Autism Live. You can go there and answer the question right now. And we will check in a little bit later to see what you guys have said. I'm really interested in your response to today's question, which is, what helps you relieve stress? What is it that you do that helps to ratchet it down? Because it's important for us to be managing the stress. We are going to have a stress tip later on today, but love to hear from you guys. How do you keep the stress under control? We can't make it go completely away, unfortunately, right? That's not the journey that we are on. But we can't just let it run rampant, because that's a recipe for disaster. I can attest to that, because I think there was at least the first 2 years that my son was doing ABA, because I had that laser focus, I did not include in it managing the stress and got quite ill. So I am a big fan of saying we have to face this head on and manage this stress and be together and hold hands on this. So what do you do? Do you read a book, take a bath, go for a long walk? What are you doing to manage your stress? And again, you can write into us on Facebook. Over the years, it's changed a lot what I've done to manage stress. And I'm really noticing, I really noticed this over the weekend, that some of the things that I'm currently doing to manage stress are A, not effective, and B, not useful to me. So I'm in the middle of saying I've really got to find some better ways to manage stress. So And there you have it. But in any case, I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say to help manage stress. All right. And we always have a topic of the day, which is now turned into the topic of the week. Our topic this week is going to be ABA for beginners. I like to go back to basics on a regular basis because I just see that I personally need it. I'll be honest with you. These things that we learn about ABA, these tools that we want to use creatively for our individual children, I think it's really exciting, but it is not intuitive. Right? We have been raised, however old you are, whatever age you are, we've been raised with a whole set of rules that, well, you know, the universe works this way. But when you stop and think about it, you go, well, it really doesn't. But this is how I've been raised. This is what they say on television. This is how this is the way it was in my house. This is the way it's in my house now. And so we have a way that we're used to reacting to certain things. Perfect example, when somebody does something and misbehaves and it really irks us and we say, well, you know, we have to teach them to do better. They need to pay for that mistake. Somebody's going to have to pay for that. We're a very punishment-driven society, that we have an expectation that somebody has to suffer for what they've done. And yet, I think we can see this in our own lives, that when we punish somebody for doing something that they did that was inappropriate, it doesn't always or usually solve the problem, right? And we see in statistics and across research that it really doesn't solve the problem, or our jails would be empty after the first time, right? And yet we still have that instinctual response. Well, I need to teach them a lesson. So when we look at ABA and we look at the principles of ABA, which principle number one is that in order for any behavior to be maintained, it has to be not punishing, reinforcing. So that the reason why people do something and do it on a regular basis is because it is in some way reinforcing to them. That's a hard thing to change. Again, if you're 27, to change 27 years of behavior and say, I'm constantly going to reinforce now instead of punishing, really hard to do. And imagine if you're older, like myself, you have that much more time in thinking that it has to be one way. So I think it's really important to go back to basics on a regular basis and say, all right, what do we know from science about ABA? And how do I apply this to my life? And yeah, I'm going to try this again. Look at that. That works. So why don't I just do that all the time? Because it is not intuitive. It just, it's going to feel funny. But it's great to be reminded. Whenever somebody reminds me and I go, oh, I know this, but it's hard to live it. And I hear from our BCBAs that it's hard for everybody, not just you and not just me. So back to basics for the week. And to that end, some of the different things that we're going to be talking about today, we've got a stress tip for you. We've got a new A-word episode to show you today. We're going to be talking about funding, and I mentioned that 11 o'clock today, we're going to have a special guest who's going to join us via Skype, Deborah Husseini, who is from the Art of Autism. And this is a wonderful organization. I know you guys heard me mention it last week and actually the week before, because I was very outspoken about the fact that if 50 Cent really wanted to make an apology for the inappropriate comments that he made about autism, that I thought it would be good if he put his money where his mouth was. And I recommended a couple of charities that could use, I don't know, a couple of $1 million. As I said, it's, an amount of money that I'm sure he just has laying around in his couch cushions. Some people thought that I was being greedy. I hear that, and if me asking for somebody who has a great deal of money to donate to autism charities that are worthwhile is greedy, then I am guilty as charged. I take that on. I accept it. I will hang my head and be embarrassed not. Because, if you've got it, and you're feeling badly because you've said something inappropriate, well, I'd like to help to hook you up with feeling better. And I'd like to how much difference, and I'm going to ask Deborah this, how much difference could $1 million make to their organization? And in any case, she's going to talk to us about what they do, but they're a really wonderful organization that helps children and teenagers and adults to be able to express themselves through art and in some cases find a career that is very rewarding. And she has sent over a couple of pictures for you guys to look at. There's actually a book that you can buy that's a beautiful coffee table book. I think it's a great gift to give, whether it's birthdays or holidays. It's a lovely, lovely coffee table book. And they're changing lives. So we're going to talk with Deborah Husseini from the Art of Autism later on and hear more about the kinds of things that they're doing so you can see why they were on my top of the list to give to if somebody was going to write $1 million checks. But you know, it doesn't have to be $1 million check. If you know somebody who'd like to give $1 or $10, very beneficial. It goes to a really wonderful cause. So she is going to be with us at 11 o'clock. We should take a break. When we come back, I'm really excited about this because I need it this week, the stress tip of the week, so stick with us. Currently in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
It just has some gases.
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christina Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana.
We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable, and recovery from autism is possible.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Are you feeling the stress? I went to, on Saturday night, I went to a concert in the park. In my community, they have these big, huge concerts in the park. And there were, a million, and I'm exaggerating, it wasn't quite a million people. There were probably, 26,000 people in this park to hear a concert, free concert. And there's kids everywhere, and there's adults everywhere. And, whenever that happens, people are going to bump up against each other mood-wise. And it was a really hot day on Saturday, and as the sun was setting, it was starting to cool down, but it seemed like everybody was in a little bit of a mood, you know what I'm saying? And at one point, I was having difficulty getting my son to listen to me, and I was having a discussion with him about that, and one of the other parents that was there said, okay, is there something in the water or the air today? What is it that I have just struggled all day long? My child is not listening to me. And of course, it's so much easier for me when somebody else says it. I said, but I think there is a lot going on. It's very hot. It's the middle of the summer. We're all a little, at that place where, we're enjoying the relaxation, except it's not really that relaxing. And we're all a little bit on edge, don't you think? I am. Are you not? And he said to me, oh, you're right. I was thinking it was my kid, but really, it's at least half about me, isn't it? And I said, well, summer is, we have this idea in our heads. It's going to be this idyllic time. We're all going to lay around and drink lemonade and Adirondack chairs. I don't know about you. It's not so much that way with me. And we get into what they call the dog days of summer. And, we're right there. It's hot. And I think everybody's a little bit less content. We're a little discontent, irritable, and restless, right? So good to know that. Good to know that, and to see if there are some ways that we can ratchet down the stress. But to not always look at it and think, oh, it's our kids. Our kids have all gone a little squirrely, right? It has a little to do with us. So I was thinking about this over the weekend because I certainly was feeling my stress level go right to here. And one of the things that I like to think about when that's happening, are you familiar with Stephen Covey? And he's written those books, the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, and those kinds of books. And at one point, I don't know if he still espouses this, but he had the 4 quadrants. And it basically was a box where he separated things into 4 different areas and said, look, there's stuff that's important and urgent, right? That's one box. And then there's a box of things that are important, but they're not urgent. And then there are boxes for things that are unimportant. Sometimes you have things that are unimportant, but they're urgent. And then you have a box for things that are unimportant and not urgent. And to stop and consider, where are you spending the vast majority of your time? Are you working on things that are important and urgent? Because when we have a child on the autism spectrum, a lot of times that box is very chock full. There are things that are urgent and important. But the problem is if you're living constantly in an urgent and important and not taking time to do other things in other quadrants, then you will find yourself, which is what I am guilty as charged of, spending time on things that are not important and not urgent because your brain needs a vacation. Right? When things aren't important and they aren't urgent, you would think, well, why would we ever spend any time there? Because when we get stressed to such a high level, we find ourselves wanting to be in that thing. This is when we're watching too much TV or spending too much time online or, doing those things that just suck time and are kind of mindless. And we do need a certain amount of that time, but it's got to be balanced with what we want, because it's empty calories, right? It really doesn't prevent stress, but in the moment it feels like it does. So really important to acknowledge, though, that everybody has different things in their life, but for those of us who have kids on the autism spectrum, there are going to be a lot of things in that urgent and important, and we need to temper that with other things from other boxes. The goal always, according to the Stephen Covey way of thinking, is to spend as much time as possible in the important but not urgent quadrant 2, so that if you're working on things that are important but they're not urgent, you're getting things done ahead of time so that things don't get to the point where they're so stressful. Well, that's peachy keen and wonderful, but it isn't always possible. But to acknowledge that for yourself. And I think, when we're looking at the day and saying, okay, I don't know about you, but I'm really good at stacking. And saying, well, I need to do this. Well, I need to do that. And I need to do this. And I need to do all of these things. And then usually when I'm doing that, the day is not that productive. But if we can focus and say, first of all, what's urgent and important today? What can only be done today and is essential that it happen today? I know I'm going to bring this up later on because I know you've got a lot of things that you have to do today. However, there is something important and urgent that you may want to think about, that it is only today and tomorrow that Autism Care and Treatment is accepting applications for grants. On Wednesday, it will be too late for this grant phase. Although it's important, it is urgent right now that if that's something you need some help and support, you're sitting there and you say to me, well, here's the thing, Shannon. I got a pile of laundry that is the size of Mount Vesuvius over here. I got a bill collector that's calling over here. I got a child who is tantruming right in front of me. I just had a fight with my significant other. I need to call the school because I got to make an IEP meeting, but I got to get to OT today. And I've got somebody coming over to the house to rent a room because we're trying to solve the financial problems. I got all of these things going on, right? And more that I can't even imagine, right? And a sibling who is furious and not speaking to you. When you're it could be your sibling or your child's sibling, right? You got stuff. And then on top of it, you got to feed people today, right? All of these things going on. Well, there are some things that are not fixable that day, right? And things that are not fixable that day, then you have to let go a little bit and say, is there anything I can do about this today? And if there is it, where is it on the priority list? Is it urgent and important, or is it just important and not urgent? Kind of separating things into those 4 categories and saying, what can I actually do today? And in amongst all this, somebody says, you can apply for a grant today that you can't apply for on Wednesday that could help you with 3 or 4 things on your other list. Do you want to prioritize that? And it may be for you that this grant period, the other stuff is too huge and important because it would take a little bit of time and paperwork, and you've got nobody to help you watch your child. Believe me, I get that. But I want for you to start to think and be mindful about, what am I choosing to do today, so that you don't feel like you're a victim. That you say to yourself, you know what, I would like to fill out a grant for ACT today, but my child is having tantrums today, so today it's not going to work. Or that you say to yourself, I would like to fill out the grant for ACT today, but my child is having a tantrum, so what can I do about that? I have this good friend from college who has been saying, if there's something you need, I wish you would tell me. I can at least call him or her and say, you know what, I could use a good 2 solid hours of help today. If you could come and entertain my child for 2 hours and not put heavy demands on them, maybe sit and watch a movie or cartoons, or play in the sandbox with them, or play in a pan of water, so that I could get this done, it could make a long-term difference in how the rest of this year plays out for my child. That's a phone call you could make. And the person may say, yes, I can come over. Or the person may say, you know what, I wish you'd told me a week ago. I could have, but I can't today. But at least then you can go, all right, given the choices that I have for today, here's what I'm going to prioritize and say is urgent and important. And if I can work through those things, then I'm going to start to work on things that are important but not urgent. So that the next time there's a grant phase for ACT Today, you can be filling out the paperwork on the first day of the month instead of the second to the last day of the month. No judgments. Oh my gosh, no judgments, because I have a pile of things that I'm working on at home right now that are urgent but not important. Now that's when you know that it's gone off the rails, right? Because laundry, while not being completely unimportant, right? But it's not how I like to look at the unimportant stuff is that, it might be important in the minute, but is it going to be important a week from now? A week from now, am I going to be talking about, oh man, I did not get laundry done on Sunday? No, right? But it's become urgent because, people have to have something to wear, right? And we want it to be clean clothes. We don't want to go around smelling like Pigpen. So laundry can become urgent even though it's not crucial and important in the long term. So as much as possible, we want to try to stay out of that quadrant where we're having to, but that's where I am right now. And sometimes you got to dig out there, right? So please believe me when I say no judgments, but I know for me, I started thinking about this last night and going, all right, wait a minute. How am I spending the time? Where am I spending the time? Am I doing it mindfully? When we do it mindfully, then there is acceptance and saying, okay, I'm going to choose not to do this because even though I would like to do that, or even though it's important, it isn't as important as this, and this is what I've chosen to give my time to. So think about those 4 quadrants. I'm sure you can find them online. I'm sure that there's lots of writing about it if you're curious about it. But as much as possible, we want to find time to be in quadrant 2, dealing with things that are important but not urgent. That means paying the DMV registration well before the day when you have to be there to do it, right? So that you get that. I'm not going to stress about that. That's something that's easily taken care of. It's done. I don't have to get into that mode of, oh, what have I done? Now I have to pay a ticket. Right? Talking to myself more than anybody else here today. But lives are full of all of these 4 quadrant things. Forgive yourself and figure out how you want to spend the day today. All right, we're going to take a short break and then we're going to come back with our success at school tip for the week. Stick with us.
The Autism Special Needs Group was actually formed because we recognize a couple of things, really important things actually, that first of all, that there are a lot of parents and families out there who have children with autism who are looking for resources. And we wanted to be able to create a place where they could come to and find resources. Also, in ABAI, there are a lot of practitioners, and they would like guidance on, what are effective practices, what is evidence-based, what is not. And so the SIG sort of brought together that constituency. One thing that I think I'm most proud of as an organization, we developed something called the Consumer Guidelines. And the Consumer Guidelines are essentially guidelines for enabling consumers, parents, school systems, and other potential consumers. How do you identify who's a qualified practitioner? What should you look for to be able to identify that? And so the Consumer Guidelines is one of our our major projects where we've put those out there, and they've actually been revised 3 times, and there's a current revision in place right now. They're on our website at autismppsig.org, and they're also disseminated through a number of other sites. LinkedIn, if you go to Cambridge Center for Behavioral Studies, ASAD, there are a lot of links to get those. They're currently in revision, and actually we just finished the 2nd set of revisions. We're actually awaiting some feedback from a few more people, and if all goes well, sometime about August 1st, we should have the most recent revision. Because that takes into consideration things like licensure in some states, revisions to the BCBA guidelines. We really cleaned them up and clarified them. But they are used in school districts all over the country to help. If you're a parent and they say, oh, that person can do ABA, well, can they really?
Right.
Do they have the experience? And how do you as a parent know when they say they can? What should you look for? And so we think that's a really critical resource.
All the information is free.
It's all free. There are research reviews there. There are interviews from leaders in the field. You can find interviews from Andy Bondi and from other, you can pick a name. We probably have them. All of the newsletters going back a number of years are available there. And also links to a lot of places as well. Links to like ASAD, I think you interviewed some people there. We share a lot of resources with the PPP-SIG, Parent Professional Partnership, Autism SIG, and ASAD. I think
it's a lot of letters.
It is. And it's one of the things, behavior analysts love acronyms.
We have jargon of the day every day, and we demystify, so you've given me more.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the really important things is that we do need to be able to speak in a language that makes sense to parents, and it's hard because, I always joke, we're behavioral nerds. We really like our science, and that's why we have an effective treatment.
Welcome back. So that was Robert Ross. We've been showing you, and we've got many more to show you, interviews from when we went to ABAI, which was ABA International. There were so many BCBAs, talk about alphabet land, board certified behavior analysts, and we went to our whole mission, Emily and I, was to get as much information to come back and give you. So Robert Ross from PPP-SIG, and heaven help me, I can't even tell you right now what PPP-SIG stands for, but I can tell you that if you go to Autism PPP-SIG, that's where you're going to find those consumer guidelines, and that's the information that I wanted to bring back to you. Because so often you guys write in and say, well, how do I know if my ABA provider is really good? What are some different criteria? And we talk about things, but they have a whole guideline, some things, so that if your school is saying to you, this is a great ABA provider, this is who we contract with, that you're not just at the mercy. There are wonderful information that you can find there. AutismPPPSig.org, and we'll be talking more about that in the future, and probably have Robert Skype into the show at some point. But, you know, it was a time of night when there were a lot of things going on in the room, and he was really rushed. We'd been looking for him because there was you got to talk to Robert, and we only had a couple of minutes, and so he is admittedly a fast talker to begin with, but we were in a bit of a hurry at that point. So in any case, but it's good information, consumer guidelines about who and what should be providing ABA to your child. So check it out, autismPPPSig.org. And we'll have more of those interviews from ABAI coming up over the next couple of weeks. Wanted to take a minute to talk with you about success at school, because as hard as it is to believe here in the middle of the summer, for some of us, it's only a couple of more weeks before our children go back to school. And how do we set our kids up for success? Because isn't that really what we want to do? I know so many of us, and so many of you report back that there is some strife at school. And of course, we had Richard Stripp in here a couple of weeks ago talking about his book, Mommy, I Wish I Could Tell You What They Did to Me at School Today. It's a very stressful thing, sending our children off to school. So how do we set our kids up for success? And we've talked over the summer about, you know, maintaining the progress and building more progress, you know, getting our kids on a schedule so that they can transition in the amount of time that they're going to transition at school. We're going to be talking, I think next week, we're going to show you how you might want to build a token economy to go to school, because I've got to build a new one for my son to go to school. But today I want to talk to you a little bit about the benefits of rehearsal. We talked about a couple of weeks ago actually about maybe, you know, it's time to start driving over the route that you're going to go to school, and looking at the buildings, taking a visit to the school, seeing if you can see your child's classroom, all of those things. But there's a whole other element to the rehearsal, which comes with the back to school shopping. Now, I am not a big advocate of going and spending a whole lot of money that you don't need to spend, right? But there is something to the idea of, you know, principle number one, when something is reinforcing, then we want to do it again and again and again. And it's most children, when it's time to go to school, need a backpack. Even in kindergarten at most schools, you can ask them. Some schools, not the case, but ask them, you know, what are the requirements? And most children are required to have a backpack. There are a lot of places right now that are offering humongous deals on backpacks so that they're really inexpensive, and it's a good time to go now before all the big character ones are taken. There are some places, we love Toys R Us. I'm just going to say it. Toys R Us has a deal right now. I think it's still going, where you can get the backpack and the matching lunchbox, and the lunchbox is for free. So it's going to save you around $15 to $20 for the lunchbox. You know, you may not need a lunchbox for your child, and there are other places that have deals right now, but check around, look online and see who's got the best deals for backpacks. But I think it's a great time of year to, again, not spend a small fortune, and whatever it is, allow your child a measure of choice. If you know that you have the funds to go and buy a brand new backpack, then I encourage you to take the child with you and say, we're going to get you a backpack. What kind of backpack do you want? And if it's that the child wants the SpongeBob backpack, you may not like SpongeBob, but I ask you, like, how much do you not like SpongeBob? There are some backpacks that I would not allow my son to have no matter what, right? I'm really not into the whole skull and crossbones thing. And my son knows, we're not getting that. Not for something that you're going to take every day of the year to school. It's just not going to happen, right? But I do want it to be something that's reinforcing to him, because especially in that first week, I want him to feel special. I want him to feel like this is an event, that it's a very, very big deal, that he is going to go to school, and that it's some wonderful, that it's akin to going to Disneyland. I try to make as big of a deal as possible. Now, if you do not have the funds to buy a new backpack, there are other things that you can do and still make it special. I know several places around the world that a bunch of moms will get together, and for instance, I try to get a new backpack for my son every year, and there were a couple of years where I had to have a garage sale to sell old stuff to be able to get money to buy the new backpack. And then there was one year when I had a group of women friends, and I know people do this all around the world, that everybody said, we can't afford it this year. So let's get together, let's take all of our kids' backpacks from other year, clean them up, and put them together and make it like a store, and have the kids pick which backpack that they want to do. So it's basically the kids trading backpacks. And there was an element of real fun for that, because it was, for some of them, they were like, I saw you with that backpack all last year, and I loved that backpack. I can't wait to carry it. And again, they were all cleaned up, so they looked brand new, even though they had some wear and tear. So, but making it fun in some way. For instance, when we do toilet training and we're going to switch to big girl or big boy underwear and get rid of the diapers during the day, we always advocate that you make the underwear in some way special and reinforcing. It just makes it that much more pleasant. And look, if we can keep putting coins in the bank that tell our children that we think that they're unique and wonderful and that they're worth it, isn't that a bank we all want to fill all the way to the brim and have it spilling over? I know I do. So making it special, whether it's that you're buying one outfit and there's no shame to, buying the outfit at a used clothing store, right? Or trading or doing hand-me-downs, go on Craigslist and say, I've got a bunch of size 3 clothes and I want to switch with somebody who has size 5 clothes. And, you might think that that's just like, well, who would do that? Because kids don't get smaller, but people have additional children, right? So somebody might have a whole bunch of size 5 clothes from an older child, but what they need for their child, their youngest child, is size 3. You'd be surprised. And it doesn't hurt to ask. It's free to put an ad on Craigslist and say in your community, look, this is what I need. And sometimes autism groups, I know in one of the groups that I belong to, people frequently go on the autism group and say, hey, I've got this and I need this. Would anybody like to trade? And I see people trading all the time. Don't be afraid to do that, but make it something that the child feels is special. I just went to a garage sale a couple weeks ago and I got a beautiful hoodie sweatshirt that has SpongeBob on the back, which is big currency with my son, and it was $1. So it's not about spending the money, and it looked brand new and he's thrilled with it. It's not about spending the money, it's about spending the time to make it reinforcing for the child. And especially when they're little, the hand-me-down thing is not such a big deal. When they're older and teenagers, then it can turn into a big deal. But let's be fortunate that at this moment in time, that's not the issue that we're dealing with. But rehearse in terms of, saying, well, this big day is coming and we're going to get all dressed up for it and it's going to be so much fun. And even if it's that you put the outfit on and put the backpack on and take all the pictures, first day of school pictures before the first day of school, because, on that morning there's all those other things going on and it's always the rush to take the picture. Take it now, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks before, so that they're building in this excitement of how great it's going to be. You can even be planning on what the activity is you're going to do after school on the first day of school. Make it somehow really neat and reinforcing. This is one of the many ways that we can set our kids up for success so that they think of school as this wonderful, wonderful thing. The school supplies right now, I like to troll all those little ads where you can, just one day a week if you go in early enough, and you can pay a penny and you can get an eraser. And then another day, a week later, you pay a penny and you get 12 pencils. Don't spend money. I find it very reinforcing to figure out the way that I can spend $4.50 and get my child outfitted and have all the school supplies that he needs for the year. Now is the time. Now is when they're trying to get you into the store to buy the things. Enjoy it. Don't let it stress you out, and make it enjoyable for your child. Okay. It's time for the new episode of The A Word. This is the wonderful documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. It follows a little boy named Jack Riley, who is now 3. He started having ABA therapy at the age of 2. He's now turned 3. He has a new baby sister. And it's always interesting to tune in and see what Jack Riley is up to this week. So let's take a look. This is The A Word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack.
Jack Riley.
He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
Hi, Jessica. Jessica's daddy. That's right. Who's this? Who's this? Bobby. And who's that? Daddy.
Who's that?
Over there? Who's that? She's him.
And I totally think he's just aware of a lot of things now. People's names. How's the behaviors been going with the inflexibilities?
He's still a big control guy. He still wants it the way he wants it.
In sessions, he was very, he'd get very upset, and
he gets upset fast, like for reasons that didn't used to upset him. He gets upset fast, and then once he's upset, everything upsets him.
Were they really long?
But it was a good half hour, the whole tantrum, which is long for him. Really long.
Yeah.
And he would just get so upset.
Yeah, everyone tells us, it's not unexpected. He's 3 and blah blah blah, but
so we get it, we know it.
Still, it's harsh. Yeah, he's 3, but he's our 3-year-old.
Tell me a vehicle.
ECP.
Good job. Tell me another vehicle.
ECP.
Airplane is a vehicle. Yay! Okay, 2 more. Okay, tell me a food.
I can't eat food.
Pancake is a food.
Yeah.
Tell me another food. Tell me another one.
Zebra easy food.
Cereal bar
is a food. Yeah.
I thought he said zebra. Hey, Jack Riley.
Yes.
Good job. Tell me an animal.
White Taurus is an animal.
What's that?
Tell me one more time. What's the animal?
White Taurus is an animal. White Taurus is an animal.
Rhinoceros.
Rhinoceros.
Oh, okay, it's an animal. Tell me another animal.
White Taurus is an
I
animal.
know. Tell me another one. Oh, here are your shoes. What animal is that?
Froggy.
Froggy is a what? No, frog is a
Arrow.
good. So tell me another animal.
White Taurus is an animal.
Rhinoceros is an animal, and tell me another one.
More pancake.
No, look at me. No, no, look at me.
White is an animal.
There you go. Thank you. Pancakes are not animals, silly.
There's a clue from it.
More pancake.
Yeah, and I don't mind if he looks around to like get clues, get hints. That's totally fine. Yes, I've been running sessions a little bit more like that lately, just because his behaviors have been really high. Just like if we're jumping on the bed or dancing, I'll stop for a minute and ask him like 3 or 4 questions, and then we'll just keep dancing or whatever we're doing. Let me probe through some stuff real quick.
What are you going to be probing?
Actions. So I just want to see if he already knows it, then I won't even bother introducing it. Give me kissing. Oh, good. What are the kids doing?
He's kissing.
Oh, they're kissing. Can you show me kissing? Oh, good job. Give me cleaning. Okay, good. What's the girl doing?
She's cleaning.
She's cleaning. Good job.
Water.
Okay, one more. Can I have it? One more. Give me crying. What's the baby doing?
She's baby.
What's she doing? What's the baby doing?
She's baby.
She's wah. She's crying.
She's crying.
Oh, okay. Maybe we'll do crying.
He's kissing.
He's kissing. What about this one? What's she doing there?
She's cooking.
Oh, she's cooking. Okay. And what's this one? What's she doing?
She's crying.
Oh, okay. So basically, she knows all of them. All right, cool. All right. What are they doing?
She's dirty.
They're what?
There's cooking.
Oh, they're cooking. Good job.
What's that cooking? What's that cooking?
Mom is cooking?
What's that cooking?
Lots of cooking? Oh, okay, cool. All right, all done. Thank you.
Welcome back. That is the A Word. This documentary, just love it. I'm a little addicted to this because, well, it's just so good. and I love to watch kids learn, and there's so much to be gained from this. First of all, there's just the arc of ABA. We see how this works. We see this family and how they're overcoming all the obstacles that they have to overcome so that the child can make progress. We're seeing the child make progress. We see the emotional side of it. We see, both the good and the bad, that sometimes this is frustrating. I love this dad. I love both of these parents because they're just so willing to let us into the world, and the dad is willing to voice the things that we all think and that sometimes don't say or just think it's just us. And, when they say, well, he's still having tantrums. He is still exhibiting behaviors and he's still having tantrums. And everybody says to us, well, he's 3, it's to be expected, because we do have to keep things in perspective, right? That we can't expect that a 3-year-old is never going to have a tantrum. Even completely typically developing 3-year-olds have tantrums. But we should see that as the child turns 3 and gets functional communication skills, that the severity of the tantrums, the duration of them, and how often they happen should be starting to taper off at this point. And if they're not, it's because there's something that's going on that the child doesn't have the means of communicating, right? However, the expectation that a 3-year-old is never going to have a tantrum ever, not realistic, right? So I love the fact that somebody is saying to them, well, if they're saying, what's going on with your child, they're saying, oh, we're still having tantrums. And somebody says, well, that is to be expected. And that they're saying, well, we get that he's 3, but he's our 3-year-old, and it's hard. It's hard, and it is hard, especially with all the other things that you have to deal with. So I so appreciate that they're voicing it, because we've all been there or are there, right? So love the fact that the dad is like, it's our 3-year-old, but, when are we going to get past this phase? That's exactly right on schedule, and it's okay to be frustrated by it. Absolutely okay to be frustrated by it. I love in the beginning, there's the moment where, he's playing and they're saying, who is it? And he points over and he says, it's Jessica and Daddy, and it's Mommy. And they say, who is that? They go to the filmmaker, it's Suzanne. And they're all like, yay. And you see his little face lights up. This is a little boy who wasn't interested in people 8 months ago. And to see him identifying who people are and lighting up, one of the other reasons why I love the A Word is it takes me back. It reminds me of those early days with my son. And, all of our kids are different, but my son was not reinforced by people, and he had the hardest time connecting with people and remembering their names. Oh, sometimes still, that's a really hard thing for him to remember somebody's name. But you know what? He works on it all the time. And he has found for himself how reinforcing it is when he uses somebody's name. He continues to work on that short-term memory because there's so much going on in a social situation when he meets somebody and says, "What's your name?" right? There's so much going on that makes it easier for him not to remember their name. But one of his favorite things to do is if he's at a store and somebody has a name tag, that he'll say to them, "Well, hi, Shirley, how are you today?" And he watches them light up and they say, "I'm good, thank you." And that's very reinforcing for him. But in any case, having our children get excited by people and the interaction with people, that's a lovely, lovely thing, and that's some real progress for this little boy. I love how they're working on categories, and we're seeing them work on different categories. In last week's episode, we saw them working on food and vehicle, and we're sort of seeing the fruition of that he's, tootling around the room and doing what he wants to do, and they're saying to him, "So name a food." And he says, well, he says, "Pancake is food." Now, if you're struggling to be able to understand what this little boy is saying, join the club. Because this is something that we see very often, is that, especially with a child who's got a speech delay, language has not been reinforcing enough for them, so they didn't make the progress oral motor, and I can guarantee you that they're working on some oral motor things for him. It's not that different than any typical 3-year-old, right? All typical 3-year-olds, they go through that phase when they're talking and only mom and dad can understand, and even sometimes mom and dad are like, what did you say? But we have to be mindful with our kids with autism that we have to kind of get them moving, because if they don't find it reinforcing when they work through all the things they have to work through to say a pancake is a type of food, and they don't get the reinforcement for it, we have to make sure that we're working hand in hand. First of all, trying really hard to understand what they're saying, rewarding approximations, right? At one point, the therapist could not understand what he was saying because he made a comment. "How lovely is this?" He wasn't even required by it. She said, what are they doing? And he said, "They're cooking." And then he said, I think what he was saying is, "What are they cooking?" That he was asking her, "What are they cooking?" But she couldn't understand him. She was like, what are you saying? And eventually she gave him reinforcement for it, even though she didn't know what he was saying, because it's important that they feel like the effort that they put in for talking is worthwhile. But hand in hand, we want to be working with them on articulating so that they're building the muscles so that they get caught up, because it's not going to be long, another year, and he's going to go to preschool, and he's got to be able to talk to the other kids and have them understand him. It's always that, running to catch up kind of thing, but working on a couple of things at the same time. And to that end, did you notice when she was probing the different actions, because this is the new thing, they were working on vehicles and they worked on food, and so the new category that she's going to do is actions. And she puts down the pictures and she says, "Give me kissing," to see, does he understand receptively does he understand receptively what kissing means? So she's got 3 pictures for him to choose from, says, "Give me kissing." He picks up the kissing, right? And what does she do as soon? She says, "Good job." And then she says, "What are they doing?" Because now she's looking to see, can he say the expressive label? And he says, "They're kissing." And she says, "Good job." So we just went through the receptive, now the expressive, and then she says to him, "Can you show me kissing? Can he do the gesture if it's appropriate?" And he does that, so she says, "Wonderful job." Then she goes to, "Can you give me crying?" He gives her crying, so he knows the receptive label for crying, and she holds it up and says, "What is the baby doing?" And he says, "She's shushing." And she says, "No, what is she doing?" Because she wants him to say crying. And eventually she says, she's prompting for him to say the crying. He says that. And he says, "She's crying." Okay, great. But she does that one again to see, does he get it? Because in the moment, sometimes somebody asks me something and I use a different word too. It doesn't mean that I don't know it, but in the moment. But I love this whole idea of using every moment as efficiently as possible. So starting with the receptive, "Give me this, what are they doing?" Now we're working on the expressive, giving this child a really immersive language experience here, and including the gestures if it is gesture appropriate. Really, really wonderful. I noticed that one moment when they were working with him in the natural environment, right? Not having to sit at a table, and asking him questions about, name another kind of food, and you noticed he was looking around. And she said, this is perfectly acceptable. Please, don't we sometimes do that? I always love in a movie when somebody's trying to come up with a name and they say the name of something that's on the table, because, we do that from time to time. I don't know what it was that we were watching the other day, my son and I, and somebody was trying to make something up, and somebody asked them something, and they said, so what's the name of your doctor? And there was a glass of water sitting there. They said, it's Dr. Glassman. Right? It's a little bit of a stereotype, but we do look around our environment for suggestions of things to do, right? When we're thinking, we look around anyway, whether it's something we're going to pull from the environment or it just gives our brain the ability. So we don't always have to have laser eye focus when we're thinking about things. And she points that out to them. This is totally, totally acceptable. But at some point, though, she does rein him back in and says, look at me. So because he's gotten used to looking someplace else and saying his answer. So she does say to him, look at me. And he immediately does and answers the question. A frog is an animal. Really wonderful, wonderful documentary. So much to be learned about therapy, about what it's like when you're going through intensive ABA therapy, and how much progress there is to be made and how you piece things together for a bigger skill. Just love it. So I encourage all of you to be watching this series. They have their own YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch from the beginning. Don't take my word for it about how much progress this little boy has had. Watch from the beginning so that you can see on their YouTube channel. It is the A Word Autism, I believe. And check it out. The A Word. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we're going to address your answers to today's question of the day, which was, what do you do to relieve stress? And if you haven't already answered the question, you can go to our Facebook page right now. We'll be back in just a few minutes to go over your responses. Stick with us.
Skills is a revolutionary web-based program that incorporates comprehensive assessment, curriculum design, progress tracking, and treatment evaluation for children with autism all in one place. Developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Our approach is based on over 40 years of research on the principles of learning and their application to improving the lives of children with autism. How does Skills work? Created with speed and simplicity in mind, Skills was modeled on an easy 3-step process. Step 1. Start assessment. Step 1 begins with our intelligent assessment system, which consists of a series of questions. This assessment is essential to identifying your child's level of skills compared to their typical peers across all areas of development. This includes assessing social, motor, language, adaptive, play, cognition, executive functions, and academic skills. Every skill has an assigned age, which indicates when the skill emerges during typical development. This means that each child is automatically presented only with lessons that are relevant to his or her age. Step 2. Choosing activities. It's now easier than ever to build an individualized treatment plan. In Step 2, you are presented with an individualized pool of activities that are directly linked to your student's assessment results. Each activity represents a specific skill that has been indicated by the assessment as needing to be taught. Activities are categorized by curriculum and then by lesson. There are 3 main types of skills: building blocks, fundamental, and expansion skills. Fundamental skills are necessary for successful everyday functioning. Building blocks are prerequisites to a fundamental skill. Expansion skills are non-essential skills, but may provide further enrichment in certain areas. After reviewing the activities available to you, you can quickly add your chosen activities to the treatment plan by simply checking the box and clicking the button. Step 3. Start treatment. Once you have selected and added the activities you want, you are ready to begin teaching. Skills provide you with all the tools necessary to design and manage an effective curriculum plan, such as printable activity guides that are customizable by the teacher, supplemental teaching aids including printable data sheets, teaching guides, visual aids, worksheets, and tracking forms, detailed IEP goals and benchmarks for each activity, brief and visually appealing video tutorials, a variety of treatment progress and clinical timeline charts, and lots more. And since Skills is completely web-based, everything you need is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in one easy-to-access location. Skills users even benefit from unlimited access to a support community, where they can ask questions and share ideas with a skills expert. Skills is always with you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and it's that time of day when we go over your response to the question of the day. I'm bringing it up right now. The question of the day today was, what helps you relieve stress? And very interesting what a lot of you wrote in. Somebody wrote in walking, another person running. I love this one, knitting and reading. My mother can knit and read at the same time. I don't understand that, but I'm guessing that you mean knitting and reading separately, but little known trivia fact, my mother can knit and read at the same time, and do both of them well, I might add. Love this one. Somebody said writing. I find that a big stress reliever. Absolutely. Another person says listening to my religious music. Another person wrote in and said that they have autism, and they said, I take showers and baths with my clothes on. Is that strange? And later on, somebody else wrote in and said, you know what? I don't think that's strange at all, that their son also likes to do that. You know, different strokes for different folks. If that feels good to you, I don't think there's anything weird or strange about that. You know, I'm sure that for me, you know, it's not my thing because the clothes, it puts pressure on. And that's not my favorite thing, pressure. I'm somebody who reaches a point where I'm like, nobody touch me. Nobody touch me. I can't be touched for at least a half an hour. I just need my space, right? But I know my son likes to feel the pressure of stuff. He has shirts that are that spandexy stuff that it's supposed to be for when you're in the pool for long periods of time, so you don't have to be slathered in sunscreen all the time. But he likes to wear them because they pull. And you know, I'm not a Spanx person, but I know women who love the feeling of being in Spanx because it's just like pulling you all in, and I feel like I'm being strangled and my head's just going to pop out the top. But I can completely understand why some people find that really a pleasurable feeling because you feel all tight and pulled in. So I don't think that's weird at all either, even though it wouldn't be my thing, right? If that's what reduces your stress, and for me, taking a shower without the clothes on, that's a really big stress reliever, and a bath as well. Water, very stress reducing, swimming even. And bless this person, they find cleaning to be a stress relief. And I know that there are many of you out there who do, and bless you. If you ever run out of things to do at your house, my home is available for cleaning. I have a friend who is a wonderful organizational expert. And, you know, there are times when she'll say, can I just come over and organize something at your house? And I have to say, I love her and I don't want her to be stressed, but I love it when she reduces her stress by coming over to my house and organizing something. She'll just come over and take my dresser and refold everything and put it in night. Oh, what a wonderful, wonderful gift to humanity. Because that to me is stressful. I can do it for somebody else, but I can't do it for myself. Another person who says walking. I do think that that's a great stress relief, and yet I don't do enough of it. Okay, another person who says TV and talking to friends on the phone. I agree with both of those things. There were a lot of years when the most my husband and I could do was sit down and watch a TV program together, and can I tell you, that was very reinforcing, very inexpensive, a lovely thing to be able to do. Another person who says talking to friends, and I always like to do something artistic, either painting, drawing, building things, etc. It helps me to relieve stress. What a wonderful thing. A couple of years ago, a friend had like a party, I guess you would call it. It was like a women's day, and everybody came, and there were all these healthy foods, and everybody, there were all these, we were all asked to bring our old magazines, and everybody got a big foam core board and sat around and made vision boards and ate all this healthy fruit and healthy vegetables and made vision boards, and everybody chatted. It was a really lovely, lovely occasion. Everybody laughed and had a really good time. But I think that being able to make the vision board and tearing up your magazines and other people's magazines, first of all, it got the magazines out of our house, which was a wonderful thing. It was a very social thing, because all the women were sitting around talking, and they were talking about important things, really, instead of saying, oh, I was on the treadmill this week of life and had to go here, and did you know that this item is on sale at this and so, that kind of peripheral conversations that you tend to have, which, there's nothing wrong with them, but I just noticed as people were cutting things out and putting them on their board, and somebody else would look and go, wow, that's really incredible. And that reminds me of, I always wanted to be somebody who knew how to inline skate, and I've never done that. And a big discussion about, what I've always wanted to do. It was really, really a lovely event, and something that I would love to do again. So, having that creative element, I think we all left there a lot less stressed and quite rejuvenated. It's a wonderful thing. I know there was at least one on one of our other sites, because you guys write in on different places, and that's fine. But another person who said, doing something for myself, maybe just reading the paper with a cup of coffee before the kids wake up. I think that kind of stuff is so important, not being the last on our own lists. Oh, man, that's a lesson that I have to learn over and over and over and over again in life. A couple of years ago, for my birthday, I said to everybody, I want to spend up until 5 o'clock completely by myself. I need some me time. And everybody's like, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. I'm going to decide on the day of. I don't want to make a plan for myself and then the day up, get up and not feel like it. I had the most lovely, healthy day, and I've given myself carte blanche that I could eat whatever, but I ate the healthiest I think I've ever eaten in my entire life. I exercised, the thing that I'm always trying to say I'm going to make myself do, and I could have done anything on that day, and I exercised, and I think I even did the kitchen dishes and enjoyed doing it, because I could play my music, and I had the choice. So I think anytime, we can find us time and say, well, what I really feel like doing is just sitting here and being quiet for a couple of minutes. What an amazing, amazing thing. Putting ourselves first on the list. And I have thought to myself, what if I were to spend every day like that? If every day I said, oh, I'm going to find some time for me and do what I want to do, how much happier and less stressed would I be? It's something to work towards. So we absolutely can, right? Putting ourselves back on the list. All right, we're going to take a little bit of a break. As I recall, we're coming back to a language tip, teaching language. And don't forget, at the top of the hour, we're going to be joined by Deborah Husseini, who is from the Art of Autism. Talk about being creative and having that outlet. If it's a stress remover for us, what does it do for our kids? And is it something that we can participate in with them, and perhaps find one of those things that we talk about all the time, a way to communicate in a different way with our kids that we didn't maybe consider. Something to think about. So back in a few minutes with a language tip, and then Deborah Husseini from the Art of Autism at the top of the hour. Stick with us. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, and this is my son Jem. We're here today at the Home Depot. You might know that Home Depot is famous for giving free classes to adults on lots of things like tiling and other home crafts. Well, they also have free classes for kids as well. It's called the Kids Workshop. We love doing that, don't we, Jem?
Yeah.
It's cool. So come on inside with us and let's do a craft.
Yay.
The Kids Workshop is a program that's been around with Home Depot almost since we've been a company, and it's been developed to allow kids in the community to come in and give them an opportunity to build something, to be able to create something and be able to take just simple wood pieces and put them together with nails and hammers and screwdrivers and then paint them.
So you do this every first Saturday of the month.
Any Home Depot that you go to on the first Saturday of every month between 9 and 12, you can join different associates throughout different stores and build these projects with these kids.
And do they have to do anything beforehand, or can they just show up on that Saturday?
All they need to do is show up. We have all the tools, all the materials that the kids will need. We have aprons that we give to the kids that they can take home and maintain their pins. They get pins on a regular basis for completing projects. With that, they can keep track of how many projects they've done. And
it's all free.
It's all absolutely free, all provided.
Which is wonderful. And Wilson, I have to say, you know, you guys devised this for all kids to be able to do this.
Correct.
What I particularly love about it as an autism mom, it gives my child a place to come and learn a new skill, to socialize with kids of all kinds.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for. Home Depot is definitely loves to be involved with the community and bring the community in to work with us. That's what we love to do.
Welcome back to Autism Live. You were just watching the Home Depot Kids Workshop. We went there, had a lovely time, can I just tell you? And we like to remind you that on the first Saturday of every month, which would be this coming Saturday, right, for August, they do a craft with the kids at every single Home Depot, and it's free. And it starts at 9 o'clock in the morning. You can take your child there. You don't have to pre-register. You don't have to pre-sign up. You don't have to do any of that. When you go, your child will be given an apron. Sometimes they have goggles. They're lent a hammer, but the apron they get to keep, which is a wonderful thing. And in some of them, a lot of them, they write your child's name on the apron, and it's just really very fun. And they give them a kit, something to build. And I just looked up for this Saturday, they're going to build a cork bulletin board. But not only that, sometimes for different events, they team up with somebody else. And for this particular one, they've teamed up with the EPA's Energy Star and Dr. Seuss's The Lorax. So at each store, not only is your child going to be able to get a free craft that they can put together and paint and do whatever, which is a cork board this weekend, but they're also going to have some Lorax activity sheets and things to do, and there's a create your own Lorax mustache kit and some Lorax stickers, and each store is going to have a life-size Lorax poster that will be affixed to the wall so that you can take pictures of your child with the Lorax. Now, come on. This is lovely, and it's free. And for those of us with kids on the spectrum, and some of you have kids on the spectrum and other kids who aren't on the spectrum, this is a wonderful thing. You take everybody and you go on Saturday morning, do the craft. They can paint. They have a really lovely time. They get a pin to commemorate the craft and a certificate that says that they finished it, so it's reinforcing for them, and the apron and the other stuff. But it's also a great time, you guys, to be working on a whole host of different things. For instance, it's social time, right? There are a lot of places around the country that are offering social skills classes where you target specific things. But one of the things they'll all tell you is you need to take this out into the community and find as many places to practice. Well, here's a free opportunity to practice with a rotating group of kids every single month. You can invite your child's friends or children that you want your child to be friends with and say, come on, we're all going to go to the Home Depot. I've done that in the past, and moms are like, I didn't know about this. And this is so fun. This is so awesomely cool, and it's free. But not only that, not only are you working on social skills, but you're also working on visual motor skills and fine motor hand and finger skills as well. It really helps to build self-esteem. They get to bring the craft home and keep it. And my son has a shelf of stuff that he sort of feels like it's, you know, his trophy shelf. And you're going to get to take some pictures of your child with the Lorax thing. You can't really beat that, right? So that's this Saturday at Home Depot. We do love the Home Depot for doing things like that. All right, I did promise you a language tip of the week. Now, one of the things that we have coming up, because it came up last week, is, and I want to make sure that everybody understands that when we talk about language, our kids are all in different places on the spectrum, right? And some of our kids have some language, but they need help developing and building it and having a more global sense and need help with developing social skills language. Some of our kids do not have any language whatsoever. There's no receptive, there's no expressive, they're not making sounds, there's no verbal language, and then there's everything along the way. So it's so important to put what I'm about to say through the filter of what's appropriate for your individual child. And we are going to have a whole week of shows coming up where we talk about teaching functional communication skills. It broke my heart the other day. Somebody wrote in right before the Holly Robinson Pete show and said, how do I get my girls to talk? And you know, it is a week-long thing to talk about, but the short answer that Evelyn Gould was here and said was, we have to start with functional communication skills and then work up towards language. And all of our kids need functional communication skills. But then we start to work on language and verbal language. So when we've gotten to that point and we're working on the beginnings of conversation, assuming that the child already has functional communication skills, assuming that the child is already learning their expressive and their receptive labels, that we can start to move into an area where we start to teach statement. And what this is that I say something and then you say something. Later on we're going to do statement question, right? I think of this as early cocktail party training, right? Because you and I know, I mean, I'm somebody who talks and I can talk to anybody, but that doesn't mean that I don't have anxiety about it. And if I'm in a room full of people that I don't know, I'm like, oh man. But over the years, I've seen people in a room and know that, you know, a great way to start a conversation is to ask somebody a question and then make a statement about it, right? And then ask another question. But we don't get there overnight, and asking a question is harder than making a statement. So first we teach our children, I'm going to say something and then you say something. And then I say something and then you say something. We're really teaching them the art of conversation, that it's back and forth. It's like a teeter-totter. In fact, you can even go, if there's a teeter-totter in the park around you, you can do this on the teeter-totter so that it teaches the child, you know, the back and forth. I've done this with my son where we sit on the floor and we roll a ball back and forth. And when you have the ball, it's your turn to make a statement, right? So that they get that clear boom, boom, boom. You know, we were watching volleyball yesterday, and I'm really looking forward to, with the Olympics, watching the ping pong, table tennis. And, you know, and whatever it is, whatever is reinforcing to your child that shows that back and forth. If your child is into sports, you know, do that. If they're not, you know, find something. It can be that if you have a Lazy Susan on your table and you put the bottle of ketchup on the Lazy Susan and you spin it around, and when it's the other person's turn, but give them some sort of representation of, you know, my turn, your turn. It can be an object that I hold it and I pass it to you. Now it's your turn to speak, to get that back and forth. But we start with statement. So I say, I like fish. And then I hand the shell or, you know, the cup or the pen to the child, and they have to say something. And hopefully, eventually we're going to get to the point where what we say builds off of each other. There's a wonderful improv game called Yes and. And you can play it with kids if they are at the point where they are able to make sentences and come up with a statement. It's a great game to play with any age child that can do that, where the rules state, I'm going to say something, and then the next person, you can play with a whole group of people. My husband and son and I play this in the car sometimes. We're going to tell a story together. I'm going to make a statement, and then the next person can't repeat what I said. They can't negate what I said, so they have to say yes and add something new to the story. So if I say, once upon a time there was a turtle named Fred, now the next person can say yes, and they can say Fred, but they can't say, and Fred was a turtle. right? Because I just said that. Once upon a time, there was a turtle named Fred. Yes, and Fred was an exceptional turtle. He had magical, mystical powers. Now, the next person can't say, no, Fred didn't have magical, mystical powers, because we're not saying no. We're saying yes. And one day, Fred went to the store to buy bread and met a magic fish. Now the next person goes, yes, and the magic fish's name was Prudence, right? And we make ridiculous stories and just build and add and build. What it does is forces the child to listen. Sometimes they find it really reinforcing, and I like to throw really ridiculous stuff into the story so that they find it really reinforcing. And if there's something that the child particularly finds reinforcing, like SpongeBob, then I say, and he ran into Patrick at Bikini Bottom, right? Because it keeps them plugged in and adding something to the story. And if they get it wrong, you can say, oh no, you got to say yes and add something to the story, sort of like, you know, making a soup and you're going to add something to the story. It really helps them to hone this back and forth kind of skill and adding something so they're not constantly repeating themselves. And later on, we're going to work on statement question. So I say then, you know, I really like fish, and they have to ask me a question. What kind of fish do you like? Or when did you start liking fish, right? That's when we get into how do we negotiate a cocktail party. Not that that's the most important thing in the world, but being able to have a conversation with somebody and make conversation, that's right up there with really important things. It's a really important skill. All right, it is time for us to take a break. We are going to come back with the myth of the day, and don't forget that at the top of the hour, we are going to be joined by Deborah Husseini from The Art of Autism. She's going to be with us. I believe we have another ABAI interview. This one, I think, is with Dr. Travis Thompson. Take a look.
The first book, the one in front with the purple color, I wanted to explain, particularly to parents, what is the nature of autism? Where does it come from? And then why is early intervention so important? So I have a section in there that ties early intervention to brain development. And so it's kind of a Autism 101 for parents and particularly for practitioners. The Freedom from Meltdowns book is a book really for parents. Every single child with autism, well, there's lots of kids for that matter, have meltdowns. They get upset about something, and the problem with kids with autism is that we don't understand, A, what triggers them, and then what do you do about it? And most of the time we say, well, parents say, well, what should I do when he has a meltdown? And my answer is it's too late. What you want to do is do something before the child has a meltdown so they don't have a meltdown. Now, I realize the reality that some will occur that you can't predict. And there are some strategies in there about, for instance, the dreaded public meltdown, which every parent fears of going out in public and their kid is down on the sidewalk screaming and carrying on. So yeah, there are some things you learn to do that will make life a lot easier. The Straight Talk book on autism, that is also specifically for parents, and the structure of the book takes the reader, the parent, through daily life. What are some of the things you can do? Like, for instance, parents will often ask me, well, what do you do about chores and responsibility at home? Well, I have some good ideas in there. I think every child with autism should have chores at home like all the other kids. And what do you do about notions of morality? Does a child with autism understand right from wrong? Well, not all of them, but they understand a lot of stuff that you would be surprised. And so how do we think about that, and then what can we do about it? The most recent one, this Individualized Autism Intervention book, is really primarily to help parents think through the question, what do I do? I go to my pediatrician, or I go to school, and they tell me, well, there's this therapy and that therapy and the other therapy, and I say, well, which one is right for my child? And they say, well, you know, the evidence isn't altogether in, and they're all good for some children, which is absolutely worthless to parents. What they want to know is what will work for my child. What I've tried to do in this book is to lay out, like in a table, all the different kinds of interventions and how are they really different. Some of those differences don't matter. They're just kind of frosting. And some of those differences are critical. And so I think it's important to understand which are which. Then what I ask myself is, if I have a child with autism, how much I want to have him engaged in or her engaged in a naturalistic approach, which is very popular, as opposed to a more structured approach, like a discrete trial approach. And there's a scale in the book that lets you evaluate each child and say, well, what's the balance for this kid? So the parents are not put in the situation of having to say, I'm pledging allegiance to the discrete trial approach, or I'm pledging allegiance to pivotal response training. But what's the balance of those types of interventions for this particular child today that makes the most sense?
Welcome back. Can I tell you what a great time I had talking with Dr. Thompson? What a wonderful patient. He reminded me so much of my dad. I'm going to be honest about that. And I think, that's like the highest praise that I can give anybody ever. So many of the people we talk to, and I know I should know better after years and years and years that I'll do an interview and then we turn off the camera or the microphone or whatever, and then we have like this amazing conversation that I go, oh, I wish we'd had this on camera. Not that what we talked about with him wasn't exciting, but when the cameras were turned off, we were talking about the fact that he is the grandfather of a child with autism, and I was asking him what that was like, and what it was like. Was he the person who said something? And he was the person who said to his child, I think you need to go get your child looked at because I think you're looking at autism. And I just found that really, that moment that I wanted to know more about. I said, what was that like? Were you nervous? Did you, was there any part of you that was hesitant to say something? And he said, why would I be? We know that there's help, and we know that there's hope, and we know how important it is to start early. So why would I have hemmed and hawed? I am somebody who knows what can be done for these children if we start sooner. It would just have been cruel if I had not said something. And I have shared before that there were people who, after my son was diagnosed, said, oh yeah, we really, we thought, but we didn't want to say something. And I spent time being mad at those people. Then I realized that came under the heading of not useful, right? Not helping anybody. And I also saw that there were circumstances where I would see something and that I was hesitant, because it's not going to be dealt with. Nobody wants to have somebody walk up and go, oh, I think you might want to get your child looked at for autism. That's not a happy moment. It's uncomfortable at best, but that doesn't mean it's something to be avoided. And I really appreciated Dr. Thompson's take on it. He was like, look, I think too much is done to have us all be victims. The truth of the matter is that we all need to share the information about hope and help. And that leads me to our myth of the day. And I'm going to say some words that are going to make everybody a little bit, right? The expression that I like to use is that it makes people's butt cheeks tight. I'm going to use the word recovery. I know, there it was. Did you feel all those butt cheeks going, But I want to explain to you what I mean by recovery, because there is such a thing in autism as recovery from autism. It is very documented. I am not blowing smoke. I'm not making things up. I have seen it with my very own eyes. My child is not recovered. I want to be completely honest about that. But there comes a time in some individuals when they have been diagnosed and met the criteria for autism, and that they progress to the point where an independent person who has not seen them before evaluates them and says, this person does not have autism. And so what word do you want to call that? Extreme progress? Whatever word, the word that I currently use and that many people in the community use is recovered. Because I don't have a better word. But I want you to know that the Center for Autism and Related Disorders has a video that you can watch about what their criteria for recovered is, because they have recovered a great many children here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Not every child who has come through the door, my child included, has gotten a recovery diagnosis, but a great many of them have. So I don't want you to think it's just this pie in the sky, some person in some other state made it up. It isn't. It's a very documented, real thing. And the the criteria for somebody to be considered recovered by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders is that they need to get an independent evaluation done where they don't qualify for the diagnosis. They have to be in a school setting where they are not getting any support and are still maintaining a minimum of a C average with no support whatsoever, no accommodation, no IEP, folks. And have no need for additional and not be receiving any additional services. And that those are the criteria, and that there are children, tons of children that have met that and are exceeding that. There are kids who are in school with no accommodation and getting an A. So why do we talk about this? And why do I think it's important that you know about this? And why do people react so emotionally when you bring up the term recovered? I like to use the phrase that my son is recovering from autism. And words have power. We sat here with Holly Robinson, Pete, the other day, and somebody wanted to know how her son had recovered. And she said, okay, first of all, that's not a word I use. And she said, I'm one of those people that, that's just not a word that I use. And I so understand, because words are important and we all use different words. But I just want you to understand when we talk about it here, what we mean by it. And I know other people who say, well, I'd like to say indistinguishable from their peers. Okay, that's totally, totally fine. But what's most important to me is that you understand that kids can get there. That roughly 47% of the kids who get the right amount of ABA, quality ABA over the right amount of time, get to that point where they are indistinguishable from their peers. It is not a myth. And I talk all the time about recovery, and so my friends and family know about recovery. And I plan on someday being able to sit here and say to you that my son has met that criteria and that he has recovered. I don't know when that day will come. He might be 45, or it could be sooner than that. But I know every day he inches closer, but he's not there yet. And that's okay. He's doing wonderfully and he's making progress. And that is always the thing that we focus on, always. But in any case, my friends and family, they will talk to people and they'll say, oh, somebody brings up autism and they say, oh, my sister or my daughter or my friend Shannon has a son who is on the autism spectrum and he's recovering. And they will write me or call me or Facebook or instant message or text me and go, you won't believe the reaction I got when I said that. And I go, yeah, no, I do. I believe you, because I see it all the time too. There are people who are like, there's no such thing. But I want you to know that there is such a thing. Call it whatever you want, but I need for you to know that that is happening, that there are kids who reach the point where their life is not affected by autism anymore. It is not going to be all of our children. It isn't. All of our children, we do not have a way to ensure that all of our kids can get there yet. But if we have figured out how to get 47% of our kids there, that's huge. And I shudder to think that there are parents walking around whose child could be in that 47% and who've said, no, that doesn't exist, and isn't doing the steps that they need to do to give their child the potential to get there. Please don't be that parent. Because if there are kids, and it's scientifically documented. I'm not making it up. I can send you, let me know if you need them, and I'll send you the links to the research that shows it in time, not just done by one organization. All over the world, people have researched this and come up with the same, approximately that same number, somewhere in the high 40s % of kids that reach the point where they don't qualify for the diagnosis anymore. I need you to know what's possible. I need for you to share that with other people so that they know what's possible. This is all part of getting our heads in that space where we understand what it is that we're undertaking. All of our kids are not going to get there, but if we're able to look at how we get the 47% there and spend our research dollars in the right areas, I believe that the day will come when we will be able to up that number. I don't know that we'll ever get to 100%, but you know what? It sure looks good to shoot for it, right? In the meantime, knowing that 47% of our kids, given the right opportunity and the right amount of the right opportunity, are going to get to a point where the rest of their lives, autism is going to be a little footnote asterisk at the bottom of the page of their lives. How awesome is that? That's the truth. That's not a myth. So stick around, because we have lots of things to talk about that can help our children to reach their fullest potential, which may be the point when they are virtually indistinguishable from their peers. Wouldn't that be exciting? All right, we have to take a short break, and when we come back, we are going to be joined via Skype by Deborah Husseini from the Art of Autism. It's going to be really exciting. I'm thrilled to have her on the show, so stick with us.
I'm Adele Nadowski, Director and Co-Creator of Skills. CARD e-learning is an online tool that has been developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD e-learning is the training that is delivered to the ABA therapists at CARD to train them on the principles of applied behavior analysis and to equip them with the knowledge they need to essentially deliver the ABA-based techniques during their therapy with the children that they work with. ABA has been proven scientifically to be the most effective intervention for children with autism. At this point, even the Surgeon General has come out with a statement suggesting just that. So we know that this is something that children with autism definitely need if they're going to improve and live the lives that we're hoping that they're going to be able to live. By being able to train people on this one particular method that we know works, and to be able to have all of your staff within your school settings on the same page, it allows you to take more of a multidisciplinary approach, and there's definite consistency going on within the team. It makes sure that every person involved with that child's treatment program, including the speech and language pathologist, the occupational therapist, the teachers, the aides, all of these individuals to be able to be trained so that they can all work together effectively with the child. Parents that are using CARD e-learning can use it either to train themselves, and then after having done that, they can implement different techniques with their child in order to teach new skills. But oftentimes parents might also be working either with an ABA provider, with a school, or they may have even hired their own therapist to deliver the intervention techniques. So CARD e-learning can be used either to collaborate with your school. It can also be used to train the therapists that are coming to the home of the parents, or it can also be shared with the ABA provider so that that provider can find out about it and perhaps implement it within their organization and train their staff. You can also do reporting for your organization. So you can actually look and find out which teachers are progressing, what their quiz scores are, and actually we can give you reports as well that will help you to compare the different teachers and their performances. CARD e-learning is really, really simple to use. You can log on to this as long as you have a computer, that's all you need, and an internet connection. And you can work on it any time of the day, anywhere that you're at. When you log on, you realize that right away. First of all, on the top of the page, there's a navigational tutorial. It's a how to use this page button. Simply by watching that video, it'll all kind of unfold in front of you, and it becomes extremely self-explanatory. CARD e-learning has 9 modules, and you can basically go through those at your own pace. You're going to be watching videos that are kind of like a storyboard with narration, but in addition to that, there's many different video clips of therapists actually implementing the techniques that are being described within the storyboard that you can also watch. And then of course you're able to pause, you're able to type notes right directly underneath the video that you're watching. You can save your notes, you can review them, and between each module you do take a quiz. And once you pass that quiz, you can go on to the next module. And then after you complete all of them, you have a final exam. And by completing the final exam and passing with a score of 85% or better, you will be given a certificate of completion. Let me show you how easy it is to use Card eLearning.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we're going to be joined by Deborah Hosseini in just a minute. We're having some Skype issues, but we're sorting that out with her. She is from the Art of Autism, and one of the I love this organization because as somebody who my basic training in life has been in the arts, albeit in theater, but I fully understand the benefits of the arts in anyone's life. It can be something that can be recreational and just something to relieve stress, and we've been talking about relieving stress all day today, but it is another way of expressing ourselves. And I have seen in the classroom how important it can be for people, regardless of what their situation is, give them an outlet, give them another outlet, and sometimes what happens transcends and becomes art. It is just absolutely amazing. And we brought this organization up because a couple of weeks ago, 50 Cent made some comments that were inappropriate. And I said, after he apologized, and some people were saying, the apology was not all that sincere, I said, why don't you put your money where your mouth is and donate? And I give you some suggestions of some of my favorite autism charities. And one of the places that I mentioned was the Art of Autism. And so it's come up, and some of you have written in and said, I don't know about this organization. So I asked Deborah to join us today to talk a little bit about what they do. Deborah, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
There you are. You look great. So for people who have never heard of the Art of Autism, except for me saying that 50 Cent should write you a check for at least $1 million, and we hope that he does. Let's start by saying, when did you start this? What is it? And what do you do?
We started the organization about 8 years ago, and it really started locally. My son is an artist, and then I was working for a nonprofit at that time, the Rhythmic Arts Project, and we had an annual benefit, and we'd include other artists. And from there, the project just continued to grow, and I was offered a book, to write a book about 3 or 4 years ago with Autism Today, and that was my first book. And then I wrote another book just in the last year, which features 54 artists, or this last one features actually 77 artists and poets on the autism spectrum. And so we have exhibits all over the United States and Canada, and it's just a really great organization. It's about community and supporting the artists.
Which is a wonderful thing. And let's take a minute to talk about the books, because the books are beautiful. And we had an opportunity to run into you at the LA Walk Now for Autism and did a little brief interview with you then. And we've got the front cover of the book that we're showing the viewers at home. It's a beautiful coffee table book worthy of being on any coffee table in any home or any business. It is a conversation starter. It's absolutely luscious, some of the artwork, and there are even written poems and things within the book. How can somebody get one of these books, Deborah?
How can they buy the book? Is that what you just asked?
How can they buy it?
Oh, they can buy the book at it's our website, www.autism.com, and it's also on Amazon. If you buy it from our website, of course, I get more of the proceeds than if you buy it on Amazon, which I don't get very much from that.
Okay, so they can go to your website, and I want to, because you were skipping a little bit there with the Skype, but it's www.theartofautism with hyphens between each of the words, correct?
Well, yes, I have two domains that point to the same thing. The
okay, great.
One is just autism.com.
Okay.
No hyphens.
Artofautism.com. Okay, great. I'm on right now the one that's The Art of Autism with hyphens, and it's a beautiful site. And you've got so much going on in your organization right now. You guys have grown and developed, and you've got several very accomplished artists who have some really exciting things going on. Tell us a couple of things about some of the artists and what they've got going on.
Well, one artist, Frank Lewis Allen, who was on display Times Square, and that's on the cover of our website. And Danny Bowman. A lot of people in Southern California know her. She's a 17-year-old little, she's a great artist and animator and a speaker as well. She was at Comic-Con for a couple shorts, and that's almost unheard of to show 2 shorts at Comic-Con. And she, with that. My own son is going to be going to the Smithsonian for 4 months. He won the DSA Volkswagen art competition, and so he's that's through the Kennedy organization. I don't have that up yet, and we have just like so many artists doing wonderful things in the public right now. It's really a great time to be working with this organization.
And we're skipping a little bit in terms of the Skype, so I want to fill in some of what I know you were saying. One of the people that she was talking about was Danny Bowman, who is a 17-year-old who is a wonderful artist illustrator. Danny's got some children's books that she's illustrated, and you were saying she was also featured at Comic-Con with a couple of shorts, this most recent Comic-Con. That's amazing. That's wonderful. That Frank Lewis Allen's work was featured in Times Square, and I know you had an opportunity to go and do that and see that. You also, some of the work that is, there it is right there, isn't that amazing? Some of there, and you can see that it says Frank Allen on that paint. That's a gorgeous painting. How exciting that must have been for all of you and for him and for his family to be featured in Times Square. Did you guys just have an amazing time there?
Well, we weren't there. He's from England. He wasn't there either. But he entered, it was an internet contest, and he actually was one of the winners. And they displayed art that day, and his art was up on Times Square on one of those big screens.
That's amazing.
Very exciting.
Well, I know you guys went back east. If it wasn't to New York, did you go to the Smithsonian? Where I know that you and Carrie went recently. Where did you go?
Well, Carrie was just in Windsor, Ontario for, she was doing some training and had an art exhibit there. Last year, we were in the Berkshires in New York City. We had exhibits. We are going back to the Berkshires with a college internship program, and it's a good purpose gallery. It's Michael McMahon. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he has a wonderful gallery in Lee, Massachusetts. So we'll be back in March or April next year with that exhibit.
Wonderful. And tell us also, because some of the paintings featured in your book were also chosen by the United Nations to commemorate Autism Awareness Month. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, there were 8 selections for United Nations Autism Awareness stamps, and 4 of them came from a notice we put out to our artists, and that is on the back cover of our book. We had J.A. Tan, Ryan Smolik from Canada, and Seth Twast, and Trent Allman were honored. And they're all artists that have been working on their craft for quite a while. So we were really thrilled that those were the ones selected.
That's awesome. So if somebody is sitting at home and they're watching this and they're saying, okay, my child has great artistic tendencies and I want to really feed that. If they come to you, what kind of support do you give the artists?
Are you asking if somebody comes to me and they have a child as an artist?
Yes.
Okay, we have exhibits around the United States and Canada. We also have an email of opportunities, and that is how like the United Nations stamps came about with our artists, and just a lot of around the United States we're able to get into because
we're having a terrible time with the connection. So you know what I'm going to recommend that we do? I think we should take a break because what you're saying is so important and I want our viewers to be able to hear it and I want to be able to hear it. So I think we should take a break. During the break, we're going to see if we can't clean up the Skype connection, and stick with us because we're going to be back more with Deborah Husseini after these messages. Hi, Hi, welcome. I'm here with Sue Cho, and Sue, tell us what you do.
I'm a senior clinical supervisor, and so I provide supervision to children in some of our clinics, and I also am a trainer for CARD, and so I provide training for all the supervisors that are either learning to be a supervisor or are current supervisors, and I also provide workshop services to children all over the U.S., Caribbean, Europe, South Africa, and Asia.
Very cool. And you're here today to talk with us about teaching prepositions.
Yes.
Help us to know how we can teach this.
Okay, so when you're teaching prepositions, there are a variety of ways that you can teach it. When you're teaching your first several targets, you want to make sure whatever you teach has a distinct front and a distinct back. Probably go with simpler and then more complex when you're teaching your beginning targets. One way you can do it is always have the same item to use as your reference point. You can also do it where you're constantly changing your reference point. So maybe within a sitting I decide now I'm going to use a truck, or I'm going to use a box, or I'm going to use a chair. But that also depends on how flexible the child you're teaching is with learning with multiple items. This lesson is actually a little more on the abstract side. So if you find that your child's having difficulty with lessons maybe such as attributes, that you may want to start off where you use multiple objects as your reference point. So I use a helmet, I use a chair, I use a car, but I never turn the position of the item.
Right.
And so once they learn if the item is in the same position where the object goes, then you can start turning your item or putting the child in a different position in relationship to the item.
So you start with receptive, though, where you're asking them to do it. They're not having to say anything, they just have to demonstrate their knowledge of it. Then how do you teach the expressive? How and when?
So what we do is then we'd probably work on manding so that the child can request for the position. Let's say the child wants a particular color, but we're not working on colors. We're actually trying to work on prepositions. So
Right.
I have a yellow block on the top. I have 2 white cars, but maybe there's a slight distinction, and they want the one that's in front of the helmet. So then they would have to say in front. So then they get the one that's in front.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Or when you're asking about tacting, at first I start off and I say, where is the block?
Okay.
And the child says, on top. I have some children that actually have a really hard time learning it receptively. I try to make them motivated to ask for a position then.
And how do you motivate them to ask for the position?
You want to put things there that you know that they like.
It seems like one of the keys to this is having really preferred items to do the exercises with.
Definitely, definitely. Because they're more likely to pay attention too then.
Welcome back to Autism Live, and thank you for sticking with us. We have solved we think, when we're knocking on wood here, we've solved our Skype issue. So we are once again joined by Deborah Hosseini from the Art of Autism. Deborah, thank you for working with us through that. So thrilled to have you here.
Thank you.
We can hear you. It's a wonderful thing. So before the break, I was asking you if somebody is watching at home and they have a child that has an interest in art and wants to do more, and they contact you, what kinds of things can the Art of Autism help with that child?
Well, primarily what we do is we have an email list of opportunities, and that's not just with the Art of Autism. We work with so many different organizations, and we send them out notices about exhibits or fundraisers or whatever that they could become part of, because one of the things is getting their name out there. And we can also put them on our website, like their images of their work or their poetry. We have a section for poetry, and we also put them out on Facebook as well. And from that, some of the artists have generated a following.
And we should mention, of course, since you brought it up, that you guys have a very active Facebook page. And so how can people find that on Facebook? What is it the Art of Autism?
It's the Art of Autism.
Okay, and it's a wonderful, wonderful resource. And what I love about, I love everything that you guys do, but what I really love is that there's the two sides of this coin here, that people can go to your site and see the kind of work that people are doing, which is really inspirational. If somebody wants to take a couple of minutes and you have all these different categories, they can look at some of the things. It's so varied and it's so inspirational to see how empowered they are to express themselves. But at the same time, you're also promoting them as individuals and their work and keying them into opportunities to show their work and in some cases to make money, correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Last week, we had the West Side Art Walk in Ventura, and we were featured on the front page of the VC Reporter. And we actually had 7 people on the spectrum in their own words inside the VC Reporter. So they did a big 4-page article on us, and I think it increased awareness in the community, and some of those artists came out, sold their work, and we also had poetry readings and some artists who were just speaking about at our event what it is like to be on the spectrum. So it was an educational component as well. To
Really
this. And it's also like an empowering thing for people on the spectrum to get together, and they're creative. They share ideas. Like we had Eileen Sabora and Danny Bowman were at this event speaking Japanese together. It was very funny.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah, it's really cute. And they were sharing ideas and making contacts. And that's one of the things our organization does. We try to put people together that we think will work together. For example, Danny's working with Justin Khanna from New Jersey, and he's come up and he's working on storyboards with her. So that's something that you don't see on our Facebook page or on our website, but it's happening behind the scenes.
It's really amazing. And so we mentioned Carrie Bowers briefly in the other part of the interview, and she edited the books for you. She's somebody who's very involved with your organization.
Right.
And her son is a filmmaker.
Yes.
And, just kind of want to have you talk about the full gamut here, because I think sometimes when you say art, people think paintings and they don't think beyond that. So talk about all the different categories that your art takes the gamut.
Yes, we've had film festivals where we've shown films like Taylor's film Normal People Scare Me. Taylor, by the way, for the first time entered visual art in this last show last week. He did some really great recycled art, which got a lot of attention. And we also do book signings and poetry readings, and Carrie does full-on entertainment shows. She gets dancers, musicians, singers, and last year we did an event in Hollywood, and we also did an event in Vancouver where it was a full-on event. So it's whatever size we can customize it to the venue.
Okay, wonderful. So let me ask you, because you're an organization that probably could, in this economy, use some donations. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
And so let's just talk dream world for a moment, because I was, putting some pressure on a certain rapper by the name of 50 Cent to perhaps give $1 million or so to your organization. What kind of an impact, what could $1 million do for your organization?
Oh, wow. We would be international. We'd go to different cities around the world. And, we're just looking for right now, like maybe 10 or 20,000 to get framing done and to, rent space if we need to, and some of the logistics. Right now, it's just coming from out of our own pockets.
Right.
So we did an Indiegogo campaign, and we got a couple $1,000s last year, which gave all the artists in my book a free copy of the book.
Wonderful. Okay. And so we've talked about the dream, like if there was $1 million donation, but you mentioned that, you've set your sights a little bit lower than that at the moment, but you would take more, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
We could do it. We could do a lot with $1 million.
But talk to us about, you said framing, so the artists are doing the work, but then you then frame it for them so that they can do, or that's what you'd like to be able to do.
Yeah, I've been framing some of the work myself. Some of the works are prints, and we want to show a diverse art, so we're not always showing the same artist at our, because people would get tired. I'm at a local venue here twice a year for a month, and I have to mix it up a lot. So I'll take prints and frame them, and we have some extraordinary artists, and it's like really a talking piece. We had like over 1,000 people come in last weekend at the Westside Art Walk, and I think they were just blown away with the diversity of the artists.
Wonderful. Well, so for anybody who's watching, who, if they have $1 to donate, or they have $5 to donate, or $10 to donate, you'll take that as well, yes?
Yes, and we are operating right now with the Celebrate Autism Foundation. They're a nonprofit, so they're kind of our umbrella for tax write-offs.
Okay, so how could somebody then give, can they earmark it to, they can give it to Celebrate Autism, but earmark it for Art of Autism?
Yes, they can.
And how would they go about doing that?
There's a website, I think it's called unintentionalhumor.com.
Right.
And I think she's coming out with the Celebrate Autism Foundation website. She's just received her nonprofit, but her nonprofit's Linda Anderson, and she and her son Brent wrote a book called Unintentional Humor, Celebrating the Literal Mind.
We've featured that here on the show. We interviewed her and featured it. We love that book.
Yes, and so her foundation is going to actually is a pathway through for organizations like ours that could help us.
Yeah, because it makes it possible for you to be able to take donations and have people have it be a tax deduction, correct?
Yes, exactly.
So, which is a wonderful thing. That's what that 501c3, which can take a whole lot of time. So to be under that umbrella is a really advantageous thing. But can they go to your Facebook page to donate? I just want to make it as easy as possible if somebody wants to give you money.
They could go to our website right now. It's not tied in with the Celebrate Autism Foundation, but we could make it do that. You know,
Okay.
That's something we're working on right now.
Okay.
But that they could donate right now through our website.
And you also take volunteers if people want to help in terms of their time. You're willing to have them help you out, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We have a volunteer photographer that was at our last event, and we need help with website, social media, just getting the word out. We have one volunteer in Los Angeles that got us a great venue for next March at Mr. Music Head in Hollywood. So it's going to be all music related things.
Wonderful. And if people, wherever they are in the world, if there's somebody who is in England and they would like to be a part of this, you said you'd like to be international, so there's a possibility that you can...
Well, we already are international. We have artists from about 17 different countries. In fact, we just partnered with this woman yesterday, Gloria Simino, who goes to Kenya and Nepal and works with autistic children in art. And so she has all this art that she wants to show, and we were just talking with her yesterday. She'd be a great person to be on your show too.
Okay, we'll have to have her on. So wonderful. So, and no matter, because we're an international show here, and so wherever somebody's watching, if they want to be involved, they can be. You can find some way for them to be hooked in and be involved. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And you're open to whatever creative form, whether it's doing a monologue, a film, paint, sculpture, poetry, comic books,
yes,
short videos. You guys do it all. Anime, wonderful, wonderful, and you're helping artists to be hooked up to information so that they can get their name out there.
That's right. Our tagline is the art of autism, finding places and spaces for artists to be seen and heard.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And I want to go back to the book for a second, because I think the book is a wonderful way for people to get involved too. And I encourage you, don't just buy one, you're going to want to buy two. Buy one for yourself and buy one to give away, whether it's that, you know, for those people that are hard to buy a gift for, whether it's for a birthday or for a holiday or a commemorative thing. It is a beautiful coffee table book, again, worthy of being on anybody's coffee table, and a great gift. And you can, send a card with it saying, and you're, by owning this book, you're helping to promote artists. But trust me, you're going to want to. And for a coffee table book, it's very inexpensive. But again, they can buy it on Amazon.com, and that's totally fine. But you don't get as much of the proceeds to be able to put back into the organization if they buy it on Amazon. So what is your preference of how they buy it?
On our website, and it's www.artautism.com.
autism.com.
Right.
Go there, buy 2 books, and take a look at some of the work that's there, you guys. It's absolutely breathtaking. Now, you mentioned that your son is an artist.
Yes.
And what is his particular area of art that he likes to participate in?
He's does oil and acrylic paintings.
Wonderful. And were you also an artist? And so that's how you came to know that he was an artist, or did it take you by surprise?
It took us by surprise because he used to always just scribble in black, and he still kind of does. He says he can't draw. He likes to paint. And we had a therapist that through UCSB Kegel Autism Center that graduated from RISD. His name's Colin Zimbelman. He has his PhD now. And he works with Star Autism in Ventura. And he introduced Kevin to painting just kind of as a therapeutic tool, and it just kind of took off, and that's all they used to do is paint. And so every session would be painting, and he would help Kevin with his communication through painting.
Wonderful. And I'm sure that you've seen the gamut of, people, every possible place on the spectrum that use art to express themselves, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes. And it's like, you have from nonverbal deaf people to like, Asperger's. It's all over on the gamut of autism. Art is a way that they can communicate.
So for parents, because one of the things that's the hardest thing for me is that from time to time I meet parents who say, I'll talk about the fact that my child has autism, and they'll say, how's your child doing? I say, my child's doing really well. And there's that moment, and they say, yeah, well, our child very profoundly affected, and our child has no skills. And it's always this disheartening thing, because my heart just beats out outside my chest for them, because I feel like they've reached a moment when they've given up, and they think that this is all that they can reach. And we talk all the time about ABA, but art is another wonderful way of getting in there, of reaching in to reach a child. What would you say to those parents that feel like their child has no skills?
The brain is plastic. It continues to grow throughout our lifetime. And one of our artists in our book, Seth Twast, he was evaluated for a dry mopping career. He's not very verbal, but at age 20, he took his first art class, and now he's in museums around the world. He is like 29. He was one of the artists picked for a United Nations Autism Awareness Stamp, and he's a very prolific artist. And there's another artist, Ricky Nesbitt, who's deaf and nonverbal and is in a group home. He started doing his art at age 32, and that now he started with little art as big as teacups, and they kept on growing and growing and growing. So he did these big, huge canvases, and then he used the canvases as a backdrop for his photography, where he photographs his little plastic animals against this huge backdrop. So he's created his own world, and his sister has said that it's just been the most amazing insight into his mind, that she never knew she could connect with him until he started doing this art. So I would say don't give up. There's always some creativity in everybody.
Yeah, and what a great outlet and a source of something positive for everybody to focus on.
Yes.
And that's just aside from the fact that, as you said, an insight into, I think the number one thing that most parents say is, I wish I could get inside my kid's head. I wish I could know what they were thinking and how they felt and what was important to them. I think that's true for all of us, whether our kids are on the spectrum or not. And to have that insight, to be able to look at a canvas and see, at least in part, how they see the world is powerful.
Oh, it's so powerful. We have a video I just put on our website yesterday. It's by Ali Ludkin, and she's from England, and she videotaped what it was like. It's a very creative video that uses her art, being autistic. I think she has Asperger's, actually, but it's an amazing video if you watch it, because it's like how she sees the world. It's great.
That's so
I just
wonderful.
can't speak more about how they're trying to communicate how they see the world differently. And just because they're different doesn't mean it's, not as good or lesser than.
Yeah, and we're always talking about leveling things and accepting differences, but when you look at your book, it really is amazing because you don't look at it for very long. I mean, you know, you see Art of Autism and you open it up and you know you're looking at art from people who are somewhere on the spectrum, but that quickly fades away. And you find yourself drawn into the art. And at least one time, I remember going, I reminding myself, okay, these are individuals on the spectrum. Like that part of it slips away because you appreciate what you're seeing, which is just so powerful, powerful. How did you choose what went in the book?
Well, it was kind of really organic. I had a lot of new artists. I did another book called Autism, the Art of Autism, which was 54 artists. And there was something that happened with that book, so I did another book. And I had so many new artists that had just come to me, and a lot of it is their moms or dads or uncles or whatever coming to me and talking. And I found that there was like a unifying theme among a lot of the parents, and they were they had a certain sense of the autism being more than a disability, but like being a gift.
Yeah.
And that came through in the stories and how these people were promoting their children and helping to they're trying to change like the world and how we see our children.
Yeah.
So that we're not seeing, oh, that poor person, you know, he can't do this. Well, he can do all of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
really
that's
wonderful.
how kind of it came. And a lot of it, it's not so much sometimes was the art, it was the stories that went along with the art. I felt the stories were very compelling.
Wonderful. And of course, that's why you've got the subtitle, Shifting Perspectives.
Yes.
Really, really powerful. So tell us again, because it was in the part of the interview where we weren't necessarily hearing everything. If somebody wants to come to an event that's done by the Art of Autism, what have you guys got coming up?
Well, we are going to be at a little local bookstore that has 2 events a year for us. It's the Curious Cup. That's in October. We're going to be at Mr. Music Head in March of next year. We'll be in the Berkshires, I think, in April. And from the event last week, Green Art People in Ventura want to do an exhibit with us. And we're getting a lot of referrals that people are interested. And I think last week was really one of our best shows because we showed 115 pieces of art from 25 different artists. So it was our biggest show. And people were just blown away with the art and the creativity.
And you know what's really striking to me is that here you were a mom and you saw this in your child, and now you've created this whole thing for so many other people. And it's just very inspirational to me to see over and over and over again what one mom can do. You are a hero. That's just amazing.
As are you.
Well, you know, I'm just doing my little thing. trying to keep up.
And it's a fun thing to do too, because it is so fun to see the art and the poetry and the stories and hear it's very creative. Everybody should have my job because, you know, you never know what you're going to get in your email box the next day.
I can just imagine. We have a wall here that we are converting into a collage that we've asked for works of art from the individuals that watch our show, some of the kids. And you've got the beginnings, but if you have anybody who would like to add to our collage, we would be thrilled to add whatever somebody would like, if you would put the word out for us.
Oh, yes, I will. Can you send me, like, who they would contact, and do you have an image of your wall, what it looks like now?
Yes, I can send you both of those things so that you can send.
And I'll put that out.
Okay, awesome, because that would be thrilling. Again, we want to remind people that if you go to it's Art Autism, or I'm on the site right now, The Art of Autism with all hyphens, and there's clearly a button there that says click here to donate. You can donate, and I would imagine that no amount is too small, that any amount would be lovely. But if you're Mr. 50 Cent and watching, a nice $1 million, $1 million would go a long way. He's an artist. You guys are artists and you're promoting artists. I just see how that goes together so well. So we'll keep saying it, and maybe it'll happen, and let us know if it does. But I also want to remind people to participate and buy the books, or buy the book, and buy 2 of them, because it's absolutely lovely and it's inspirational. You know how some days you just need that, it's a rough day at home and you just need a little bit of inspiration. You thumb through this book and you breathe easier. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I congratulate both you and Carrie on doing a great job.
Thank you.
And we'll have to have you back anytime you got a big event. Let us know, and we'd be happy and thrilled to have you on the show.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care and have a great rest of your day.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So again, that's The Art of Autism. I hope that you will support them in whatever way you can. And if nothing else, get at least one of the copies of this book, because it'll change your day and maybe shift your perspectives as well. We're going to take a break. Stick with us. We'll be back after these messages. I'm here today with Sarah Cho, who is the managing supervisor of CARD Fresno. And she's a wonderful resource, and today we're going to be talking with her about using assisted technology.
If you are a parent of a child who is primarily non-vocal and maybe has been using a type of iconic communication system, and you are recognizing that your child has really just outgrown it. It is something, they need something faster, they need something better. There's so much more that we can do in the world of augmentative devices. I am a huge fan of using augmentative device programs on cell phones and also on iPads. As you and I were chatting, we had just downloaded a really simple tap-to-talk program. So for this one, all a child would need to be able to do is just tap on what they wanted.
I want a drink.
And then that immediately pulls up a screen where there's water, juice, milk, soda, and smoothie. So maybe the child just wanted a drink of their water.
Water, please.
And it's that simple. And there's not a lot to manipulate. The child does not have to have really advanced motor skills at all.
We're seeing more and more organizations advocating getting an iPad because of all those features. But it's not just for kids who are non-vocal.
We have a lot of kids, who have significant impairment in their sensory regulation. They really are seeking visual input, auditory input, tactile input. And if they're learning to appropriately play with a cell phone or with an iPad or with a computer, it provides those levels of appropriate sensory stimulation. So you're getting appropriate sensory, hopefully leading to a decrease in some of those repetitive behaviors, and you're teaching age-appropriate play skills. They have free apps even if you're working on verb use, and the child can actually scroll through the different pictures and practice talking and narrating what they see in the pictures. There's just a lot of wonderful things that you can get from devices nowadays. Whether we're looking at language, social, play.
For my son, it's quite the social thing. When he sees somebody else who has one, he gravitates to them and they start playing together. It really starts the conversation with the other child.
What games do you have? What apps do you have? Can I play that one? Can I see it?
And a lot of the apps are super inexpensive or free.
Or free.
Which is, you can't be free. Free is good.
You might have that initial investment in actually purchasing an appropriate device, but then a lot of the software or things that you need, are free or relatively inexpensive. There are also some really nice applications that might be a little bit more expensive, maybe like $20 or $30, or you can essentially download the entire, for example, PEC's icon library for just that little initial, investment.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and I wanted to take just a second. It's that time of day when we talk about our DTT tip of the week. I mentioned this earlier in the show. DTT is one element of ABA. A lot of times people get them confused and think that they're synonymous with each other, and this is a huge misconception. So I want to just clear that up. DTT stands for Discrete Trial Teaching. It is one element of ABA. I always like to say, your steering wheel is part of your car. It is not synonymous with car. You would never say, I'm taking my steering wheel and we're going to Vegas this weekend, right? Same thing with DTT. DTT is an important element. It's the steering wheel, maybe, perhaps, of ABA. Really important. I wouldn't want to go to Las Vegas driving my car without my steering wheel, right? Wouldn't be very effective, but I certainly couldn't get there with only the steering wheel. You get where I'm going with this? So ABA has many different things. It has DTT, discrete trial teaching. It has natural environment training. It has some precision training, some fluency training. But DTT is really effective at beginning to teach a skill. It's that thing that I was talking about where we take out one element of the skill and we just isolate it so that we can make sure that we do something, the child does something, and we reinforce it. And we just make this little bubble for that three-term contingency where we say or do something, the child does whatever the behavior is, and sometimes we hone it down to just one element of the behavior, and then we reinforce them. So it's a great way to teach things to somebody that was having trouble learning it in the typical way, right? By the way, DTT is useful for all of us just like ABA is. It doesn't have to be somebody who is on the autism spectrum to benefit from having something done DTT. I find myself now, if there's a new task that I'm trying to learn how to do and I'm just struggling with it, I find myself now taking it down to a task analysis and saying, okay, is there some element of this that I can pull out and get better at so that when I go to do the whole thing in a stream, I can have a better chance of being successful at this, and I find it very effective for me. So it's really a wonderful, if there have been things that you've been trying to teach your child and you just go, they're not getting it. DTT, very useful to begin to teach it, but we never stop with DTT. We're always going to do it natural environment training too, because it's so contrived, the circumstances that we've set up for DTT. It has to be that way, but it has nothing to do with real life. But again, you start to teach the skill and then you can plug it into real life and give opportunities for them to practice it there. And we do have to give our children lots of opportunities to practice. But one of the things that we want to do when we're doing DTT is to minimize distractions. Later on, all bets are off. We want to put distractions deliberately in to see if they can do it even with distractors. But in the beginning, we want to minimize the distractions. So when we're sitting there with a child and we're going to teach them a new skill, it's not the period of time when we want to have the dishwasher going and we want to have the television on and the person outside screaming things outside the door. We want to find a place to do our DTT in our home or wherever it is in the classroom where we minimize the distractions. DTT is really something that needs to be one-on-one if possible. When we're doing NET, it doesn't need to be one-on-one. It could be a whole group. In fact, sometimes that's advantageous because we're teaching a skill that has social skill elements to it too. But we really want to, as much as possible with DTT, especially when we're introducing a new skill, a new lesson, hone it down, make a bubble. Make a bubble. How can we get this behavior to happen in a bubble where we're absolutely guaranteeing that it's going to be reinforcing to the child? So, I always say if somebody was going to teach me calculus, starting to teach me calculus at a carnival with a merry-go-round probably isn't going to get the job done. I mentioned last week that when I first started to work on this show and ramp up to the point where we could do the show, I was granted the best gift in the world, really, that I got an hour every single morning where I got to sit and talk with Dr. Adele Nadowski and pick her brain and have her explain things to me over and over and over again, because sometimes it took over and over and over. And we would go into her office, and I had so much I wanted to know, and I was so excited, and I found myself myself getting dizzy. Now, I'm a dizzy person to begin with. I'm somebody who can get dizzy on a stationary bicycle because just something about movement with my eyes, I get dizzy. And so I was getting really dizzy in her office, and I kept saying, what is the problem? I'm just so dizzy all of the time. What is going on? And what we realized was that her office overlooks one of the major freeways here in Los Angeles, and a particularly pretty portion of the freeway, but there were cars zipping by, and it was just in the background, but I was talking to her, and there's cars zipping by, and it was just enough that it was making me a little car sick. So we closed the lower portion of the blinds, and I could focus. Imagine, I know our kids have all kinds of things, and sometimes it's the ticking of a clock, sometimes it's a light that flickers, those fluorescent lights, and they just get a little bit off well before they're going to go, and they flicker. That is enough to distract our children. So we want to make that bubble when we're starting. Eventually, we're going to put the child in the room with a flickering light and see if they can do the skill with a flickering light, but that's not where you start. Minimize those distractions, and you'll find we all have the opportunity to learn a difficult skill in a more efficient manner if we're given reinforcement and we minimize those distractions, and if we're abundantly clear. It really, really makes the difference. So that's our DTT tip for the week. We're going to take a short break. I want to show you Corey, the behavior guy from ABAI, and we'll be back with our funding tip and to close out the show, so stick with us.
Behavior guy.
And why are you known as the behavior guy?
I sort of adopted that moniker after working with parents and teachers who always referred to me that, well, the behavior guy's coming into the classroom, behavior guy's coming to the house today, so might as well own it. But I'm a board-certified behavior analyst. Facebook page is facebook.com, and I think it's /behaviorguy2, and then but the website is behaviorguy.com, and it's sort of an information portal for people interested in applied behavior analysis, parents, teachers, students, whoever.
You have worked for a period of time with kids who have behavior problems that don't necessarily have autism, correct?
That's correct. I actually got my start in special education with typically developed children, many of whom had diagnoses like oppositional defiant, conduct disorder, ADHD. So indeed, applied behavior analysis is just a science of human behavior. It happens to be the science of human behavior that informs effective autism treatment, but that is one small tail of the spectrum for which behavioral principles apply.
So a lot of our parents don't know how effective it is for kids who aren't on the spectrum. When you would use this for kids in the classroom, they're having those behavior problems. How effective was it?
Very effective. It really depends on implementation, and that's the hardest thing, is getting everybody on board and following through, and that's a tough challenge for a practitioner, is to get teaching the skills to the parents and teachers. That was something I always focused on. So, my role has always been not to directly provide services to the child, but to teach parents how to implement these procedures on a daily basis, because they're with their children 24 hours a day, to give teachers the tools that they need to understand how to assess behavior, how to implement effective teaching skills, effective classroom management skills, so that they're always effective. So it's parent training and teacher training, and giving everybody new skills all around,
And now you're doing a lot of training of behaviorists, yes?
I do. Actually, I work for the Florida Institute of Technology. We have an online professional development program for individuals who may have degrees in other related fields and want to get that core course content for board certification. So I am a lead co-instructor for that program, and work with the students in helping them understand the concepts and working with them to gain the skills that they need for board certification.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm just reading a question that we got and not knowing that I understand it. But let's see if I can figure it out. I do want to remind you, though, because I promised you a funding tip, I want to remind you that Autism Care and Treatment Today, ACT Today, www.act-today.org, and I think Emily will put that up on the screen for you. It is a wonderful organization that gives grants to families for the kinds of things that they request. So if you really want for your child to have an iPad and it's outside the scope of what you can afford right now, you're saving up for it, but you'd like to have one, ask for one. Fill out the grant papers. You can apply for whatever it is that you need. If you need to go to a doctor to get the diagnosis so that you can start to get the insurance and you can't afford that, don't sit there and say, then we can't do it, right? Ask for a grant. They're in a grant phase right now. Their grant phase lasts for a month where they'll take applications. There are 2 days, today and tomorrow, left of this month. On Wednesday, it will be too late. There is a bit of paperwork to be filled out. I want to encourage you to go to their website, fill the paperwork out today. They do give grants. They've given away over $500,000 in the last 3 years for things like iPads and fencing and diagnostic testing. Like the list is endless. Trampolines, help, with co-pays and deductibles, you name it, doctor bills. Write them and fill out the grant application. You've only got 2 days. Okay. So this person wrote in and said, hello, how to teach this. Example, there are 2 pictures of balls, and one is a bed, for example. Touch all the balls. I don't understand. Even FFFC, all the stuff you bounce. She touches the 2 balls, but when I ask touch something that's not a ball or something you don't bounce, she can't get it. I think she doesn't understand the not, the negative part of the sentence. Any tips and help? Yes, there's a whole set of lessons and skills about teaching negation. It's tricky and it's hard, right? Because it's, even now, my son is 9, and there'll be times when the toughest thing for him is the answer to the question, do you mind if I? Right? Because if you say yes, it means you do mind, which means a no. And if you say no, I don't mind, then that means a yes. So he has to think it through. And he always asks me, did I get that right? So you said no, and that means yes in this circumstance, because what I asked was, do you mind? So teaching negation is really, really difficult, but there is a wonderful set of lessons. It's in the language, I believe, curriculum of skills about teaching negation. And I'll tell you what I'll do is that I'll pull some of those up tonight, and I will go over some of the things about negation with you, because off the top of my head, I know there's some really great teaching tips in there, and I don't know off the top of my head. But that's what it's called, teaching negation, to understand when something is not something. And then you start with DTT, and you drill it, and basically in the beginning you want to give them the right answer. I know this much, and you're emphasizing the word not. So which one is not a ball? And you lead their hand over to the one that it isn't, and you go, yes, it's not a ball. These are balls. This is not a ball. And being that clear about it. And then you can sprout into other, which one is never this, because there's lots of, and which one has no, right? There's different SDs, because there's different things that we're going to teach, different targets that we're going to teach there. But a whole set of lessons on negation and skills, which are really wonderful. And I'll bring some of that up tonight so that we can talk about it tomorrow on the show. Hey, want to remind you, too, that we've got a really interesting week full of shows tomorrow. We have a special guest tomorrow, and we are also having a mom who started a petition on tomorrow that I know that you guys are going to want to hear about. Also want to remind you that on Wednesday, we always have Evelyn Gould comes in and talks with us during the 10 o'clock hour. Nancy Alspaw Jackson will be joining me during the 11 o'clock hour. And from what I understand, we're going to have a very special guest during that hour. I don't have confirmation on it yet, so I'm not going to give it away. Then on Thursday, I think we're going to be talking with a guest who can tell us about autism in Canada, which is going to be very exciting, and another special guest that day. Angela Persicki from Research will be with us on that day. And then on Friday, of course, we always have Dr. Jonathan Tarbox talking with us about research, and he is quite remarkable. So looking forward to a week of covering a wide range of topics that are of interest to you. I want to go back over a couple of different things that we talked about today and remind you, because, we talked about relieving stress and about those 4 quadrants, about things that are urgent and important, things that are important but not urgent, things that are not important but are urgent because they've gotten to that point, and things that are not important and not urgent. I hope that if you are having financial difficulties on this journey through autism, and bless you, if you're not, I don't know you, and I haven't met you. I have yet to meet the person who said, oh yeah, that autism thing, we could afford it. I mentioned the other day when Holly Robinson Peete was here that she wrote a blog over a year ago about the 8 things she wished everybody would know about autism. And the number one thing was that no one can afford autism. No one. And forgive yourself for that. I know I had an expectation that I was supposed to be able to afford taking care of my child. Guess what? It doesn't apply to autism. I have yet to have met the person who can. I figure if Holly Robinson Peete says that nobody can afford it, Holly Robinson Peete knows Oprah. And if Oprah can't afford autism, then guess what? I just don't think anybody can. And we can all forgive ourselves. But if you can't afford it, that doesn't mean that your child does without. And I know there were many times that I sat down to the computer and I put autism grants into the computer just to search to see what was there. And you get a lot of gobbledygook and a lot of people who just want to take advantage of you. So I want to make sure that you know that Autism Care and Treatment today actually gives grants. They're the real deal. Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson, who joins us on Wednesdays, is the executive director. It's the real deal. You do have to fill out paperwork, but they are about to close this summer grant phase in 2 days. On August 1st, it will be too late. So I believe that this comes under the heading of urgent and important. If there's something that your child needs, if you just close your eyes for a minute and allow yourself to dream and hope, I know it's hard on some days, but what could make a difference to you today? What could make a difference to your child? If there was one thing that you said, oh, if I just could have some help with this, it could make a difference. And then I'm going to beg you to please apply for a grant for that. I can't guarantee you that you'll get it because there's never enough money, right? But a lot of people will get grants. That much I can guarantee you. And why not you? Why not you? I know that there's something that you've been longing for, whether it's the iPad. And if you're thinking to yourself, well, we've been saving for the iPad and we're just going to wait until their birthday, or we're just going to wait until the holidays to get the iPad. I'm just going to say to you, what if you were to apply for a grant for the iPad and then that money you've been saving went towards something else? Something else that saved your stomach lining. That is what this organization is for, to support you. So please apply for a grant from Autism Care and Treatment today. Hey, as this conversation, well, it's not going to end. The show's going to end, but the conversation doesn't end because it goes on and on and on. And I want to go through some of the different ways that you can continue to stay in touch with us and talk with us. If you're watching us on autism-live.com, it says live right now, but in a minute it's going to say rebroadcast. When it says rebroadcast, you can email us. You can always phone with us. You saw us earlier, and Emily's going to scroll through some of these different ways that you can be in contact with us. You saw earlier that we Skyped. Yes, we had some Skype issues, but we sorted it out, right? And you too can Skype with us, and we can sort it out then too. You can communicate with us on Facebook. We really enjoy that. And whether you're participating with a question of the day, or telling us what you saw, what you liked, or sharing a link of something that you think is exciting, share with us on our Facebook page. You can also be tweeting with us. We really enjoy the whole Twitter process and are starting to find it more reinforcing using the royal we. Okay, if you want to, there are so many other places that you can be watching us besides autism-live.com. There you see blip.tv. That's a wonderful way to watch us. We have our own YouTube channel that you can be participating with us on YouTube. And you can also be downloading us for free on iTunes, and we are on Ustream. You know what I forgot to mention as we get down to the end here? On Wednesday morning at 9:30, we're going to have Mark Serkin from Autism Speaks is going to be with us. And he writes some really fascinating blogs, and I can't wait for him to be here because he's somebody who gets to see a lot of the inspirational side of autism. So we're thrilled that we're going to have Mark Serkin from Autism Speaks with us. If you have questions for any of the guests that you know are coming up, whether it be Mark Serkin Foundation or Jonathan Tarbox or Angela Persicki, I would encourage you to write in all those ways that we just mentioned or phone in, and you can ask your question ahead of time. I know last week when Holly Robinson Pete was here, you guys were asking so many questions all at once, and we stayed later. There was a part of the interview that did not air that you got to go to YouTube to be able to see. But I believe that it is there now, and you can see that. But ask your questions early because they get precedent. So I hope that you guys will take the opportunity to participate in that way. We're going to be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And as I mentioned, we're going to have a couple of guests with us. One of them is a mom who has started a petition that I think you're going to want to hear about. So be with us then. And until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.